Hey everyone, and welcome back to Fact Check Simplified. Today we're talking about that time when the internet's most photogenic entrepreneurs, fresh off of convincing a generation that flat tummy tea was a viable substitute for a functioning digestive system, decided to become Wall Street wolves. We're diving headfirst into the chaotic, glitter-bombed car crash where influencer marketing met cryptocurrency. Think of it as the world's worst startup pitch meeting gone global, where the product was invisible, the profits were imaginary, and the only thing being truly disrupted was your bank account. We're going to attempt to simplify a Venn diagram of predatory marketing, blockchain technobabble, and mass delusion. It's like trying to explain quantum physics using only interpretive dance. Something is definitely going to get lost in translation, but damn, it'll be a show. Before the inevitable corporate betrayal starts, if you enjoy this highly dramatic but fun version of modern facts, please hit that like and subscribe button. Seriously, it helps us pay the electric bill for our overpriced standing desks. Alright, grab an iced latte. Things are about to get unnecessarily infuriating. Our story begins in the shimmering, saturated landscape of the early 2020s, what historians will one day call the Gilded Age of digital grift. The influencer economy, a massive decentralized entity held together by affiliate links and a collective fear of irrelevance, was getting bored. It had reached peak saturation. There were only so many times you could watch a perfectly sculpted human being pretend to be obsessed with a generic set of wireless earbuds drop-shipped from a factory in Shenzhen. The audience, once a wide-eyed flock of willing consumers, was developing a mild immunity to the usual tricks. They knew the discount code was a lie. They knew the candid laughter was the result of 12 takes. They knew the waist trainer was a modern corset designed by someone who hated internal organs. The margins on physical products were shrinking, and the logistics were a nightmare. Damaged goods, shipping delays, customer complaints, it was all so terribly tangible, so messy. The beautiful people of the internet, whose careers were built on curating an effortless, frictionless existence, needed a new product. Something clean, something abstract, something that couldn't get lost in the mail or arrive with a mysterious stain. They needed a product that was pure, uncut narrative, a story, a vibe. They needed something they could sell with a single smoldering gaze into a camera lens and a caption full of rocket emojis. And that's when they turned their heavily filtered blue light-blocking glasses-wearing eyes toward the buzzing, chaotic, and gloriously unregulated Wild West of cryptocurrency. Crypto at this point wasn't just an asset class, it was a subculture, a religion, a furious rebellion against, well, everything depending on who you asked. It was a digital frontier town populated by true believers, coding prodigies, basement-dwelling anarchists, and a few forward-thinking criminals. It was complicated, volatile, and wrapped in a dense fog of technical jargon designed to make normal people feel stupid. And for the influencer economy, this wasn't a bug. It was the main feature. If nobody really understands it, then anyone can pretend to be an expert. The barrier to entry wasn't knowledge or experience, it was confidence. And if there's one thing an influencer has in infinite supply, it's unearned, weaponized confidence. They saw this chaotic landscape not as a risk, but as an opportunity. A brand new gold rush where the gold was literally invisible, and its value was determined entirely by how many people you could convince to believe in it. It was the ultimate affiliate marketing scheme. This led to one of the most cursed yet predictable business meetings in modern history. A meeting of minds that took place not in a boardroom, but in the DMs and back channels of the internet. Personified dialogue. The influencer economy. Personified as a stunningly attractive yet deeply bored individual, endlessly scrolling through their own perfect feed on a yacht. I'm so over this. Another must-have Monday? I can feign excitement for another subscription box full of kale chips and ethically questionable face masks. My followers are getting restless. My engagement is stable. Stable. The horror. I need something with more drama, more upside, less physical inventory. The cryptosphere, appearing as a glitchy, hyper-caffeinated hologram, vibrating with the energy of 1,000 Reddit threads. It speaks in a staccato of buzzwords. Did someone say, upside? Disruption? Paradigm shift? Forget face masks. Forget physical anything. Reality is a drag. Legacy systems are for boomers. The future is decentralized. The future is code. We have assets. Pure assets. No warehouses, no supply chains. Just pure, unadulterated value based on collective consensus. The influencer economy raises a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. So, what do I sell? The cryptosphere. A dream. A revolution. You sell the idea of the future. You sell them a ticket to the moon. You don't need to explain the rocketry, you just need to point at the sky and tell them you're going. We've got the tech. Well, the theory of the tech. What we lack is mainstream appeal. We need prophets. We need evangelists. We need people who can make owning a string of hexadecimal code seem as glamorous as owning this yacht. The influencer economy. A slow smile spreads across its face. And the commission structure? The cryptosphere. Let's just say it's parabolic. And just like that, the deal was struck. The great pivot began. It was a match made in capitalist hell. One entity had a product that was infinitely scalable and incomprehensible to 99% of the population. The other had millions of followers conditioned to trust a pretty face and a well-written caption over their own common sense. The influencers didn't need to understand what a blockchain was. They didn't need to read a single white paper. All they had to do was apply the exact same formula they used to sell teeth whitening kits to a far more volatile and dangerous product. They traded use my code SMILE20 for 20% off, for the HODL, to the moon, not financial advice. This is the part of the story where I have to pause and just marvel at the sheer unmitigated audacity of it all. We as a society collectively decided to watch people whose most significant contribution to the economy was mastering the art of the thirst trap and turn them into our financial advisors. They became the public-facing venture capitalists for a new technological era. These were individuals who considered a 15-minute YouTube video a deep dive, and whose idea of due diligence was checking if a coin had a cool logo. We were handing the keys to a global high-tech experimental financial system to a pantheon of digital deities whose primary skill was looking good in athleisure wear. The red flags weren't just being ignored, they were being woven into a beautiful, aspirational tapestry and sold back to us as a limited edition NFT. So our pantheon of digital gods needed a new gospel to preach, a new sacrament to sell. But they couldn't just pluck one out of thin air. No, they needed a vessel for all that impending hype. They needed a product. And in the great, churning primordial soup of the internet, a new kind of creation myth was being written. It didn't involve thunderbolts or divine intervention. It involved two guys, a frightening amount of caffeine, and a freely available bit of open source code. This is the story of the birth of our revolutionary paradigm-shifting and utterly fictitious shitcoin. Let's call it Apex Inu. Apex Inu wasn't born in a sterile Silicon Valley lab staffed by PhDs. It was conceived in a dimly lit, overpriced apartment that smelled faintly of stale pizza and shattered dreams. A space we'll call a digital garage to be generous. The founders weren't visionary cryptographers. They were a couple of marketing bros who had read one too many articles about Dogecoin millionaires and decided they wanted in. Their technical expertise was limited to knowing how to Google how to create a BEP20 token tutorial. The process, which they would later describe in interviews as a Herculean feat of software engineering, took approximately 45 minutes and cost less than a round of drinks. You see, creating a new crypto token isn't like building a skyscraper. It's like using a photocopier. You take the code from an existing functional token, you find the name and symbol fields, and you perform a digital find and replace. Voila! You are now the proud parent of 10 quadrillion units of a brand new financial instrument. The innovation here was purely cosmetic. They needed a killer brand. The name had to sound both futuristic and meme-worthy. Apex suggested dominance, the peak, the pinnacle of finance. Inu was a shameless nod to the Shiba Inu dog coins, that had already made a handful of people obscenely wealthy and a great many more people depressingly poor. It was a cynical mashup of buzzwords designed to tickle the brain of the get-rich-quick inclined investor. Next came the logo, a sleek, geometric wolf howling at a triangular moon. It looked professional. It looked powerful. It looked like it was designed in 5 minutes on a free graphic design website, which it was. But it was clean. It was the kind of logo you could imagine on a tastefully embroidered hoodie worn by someone who vapes indoors. The real masterpiece, however, was the mission statement. Apex Inu wasn't just a token, it was a movement. It was here to empower the individual, disrupt legacy financial institutions, and build a decentralized community-first ecosystem for the new creator economy. It was a beautiful, meaningless string of corporate jargon that promised everything and committed to nothing. It was the digital equivalent of a politician kissing a baby. The entire foundation of this multi-million-dollar project was a flimsy stage set, and the two guys who built it were about to have a very important, very stupid conversation. Personified dialogue. Anonymous Dev Number 1, leaning back in his gaming chair, staring at the new Apex Inu logo on his screen. Okay, I think we're good. The token contract is deployed. We officially own 60% of a currency that doesn't exist. How revolutionary do we feel? Anonymous Dev Number 2, frantically typing on a different laptop. Shut up. I'm working on the roadmap for the website. We need phases. People love phases. Phase 1, community building and initial launch. That's now. Phase 2, influencer marketing push. Phase 3, utility development and NFT marketplace. Anonymous Dev Number 1, what utility? What are we developing? Anonymous Dev Number 2, it doesn't matter. We just have to say we're going to. We can put metaverse integration in Phase 4. By the time anyone asks about Phase 4, we'll be on a non-extradition island counting our money. Now the tokenomics, how much do we burn? We have to burn some. It creates scarcity. Anonymous Dev Number 1, I don't know, burn like half of it. Send it to a dead wallet. It looks good on the chart. Makes people feel like their share is more valuable. We also need a charity wallet. A small percentage of every transaction goes to saving the wolves. It connects to the logo, see? Synergy. Anonymous Dev Number 2, oh, that's brilliant. Pure, unadulterated PR. So we're a green, charitable, community-driven, metaverse-ready financial revolution? Anonymous Dev Number 1, exactly. We're whatever they want us to be, as long as what they want is to give us their money. Now let's start seeding the Telegram group with some burner accounts. We need to build the hype before we even approach the influencers. This is the fundamental, terrifying truth of the digital gold rush. Value is no longer tied to reality, to assets, to utility, or to profit. It's tied to narrative. A worthless string of code, created by two cynical opportunists in less than an hour, could soon be worth more than a company that employs hundreds of people and produces a tangible product. Why? Because the story was better. The story of Apex Inu was a story of hope, of rebellion, of community, of getting in on the ground floor of the next big thing. It was a lottery ticket disguised as a technological revolution. The whole enterprise was a masterclass in perception management. The developers, cloaked in the cool anonymity of the blockchain, presented themselves as mysterious, benevolent figures working for the good of the people. Their creation, Apex Inu, was a perfect blank canvas. It had no function, no product, no revenue, and therefore no pesky metrics by which it could be judged a failure. Its only function was to be bought and sold. It was an object of pure speculation, a digital pet rock that whispered promises of Lamborghinis in your ear. And now this beautifully crafted, entirely hollow vessel was ready. It was polished, branded, and sitting on the digital launch pad. All it needed was a pilot, a charismatic, trusted face to convince the world that this wasn't just a photocopied piece of code with a wolf logo. It needed to be sold as the future itself. It needed a profit. It needed a Chad. A beautifully empty product like Apex Inu can't sell itself. It needs a storyteller, a high priest to conduct the sermon and pass the collection plate. It needed someone who could look directly into the camera, flash a blindingly white set of veneers, and make you believe that buying a token named after a dog was a sound retirement strategy. Enter the prophet. Enter the Chad. For our purposes, we'll call him Chase Maverick, but you know him. You've seen 1,000 of him on your feed. He is Crypto Chad, the ultimate archetype of the modern finfluencer. Chase Maverick did not have a background in finance. He had a background in aesthetics. His qualifications included a degree in looking good shirtless and a PhD in finding the perfect golden hour lighting. His social media profile was a masterfully curated museum of aspirational bait. Every post was a carefully constructed diorama of the life his followers dreamed of. A blur of private jets, chartered for an hour, exotic supercars, rented for the afternoon, and infinity pools overlooking cities he was only visiting for 48 hours. His bio was a holy trinity of hustle culture buzzwords: entrepreneur, speaker, freedom chaser. It conveyed authority and success without the inconvenience of specifying what he actually did for a living. The entire operation was a spectacular illusion, a performance piece in late-stage capitalism. He didn't sell a product, he sold an identity. The Crypto Chad persona was built on 3 core pillars. First, the conspicuous, almost violent display of wealth. He wouldn't just own a nice watch, he'd post a close-up wrist shot with the steering wheel of a Lamborghini in the background, and a caption like, "Time is our most valuable asset. Spend it wisely." The subtext was screaming, "My time is clearly more valuable than yours, and it's because I own things you don't." It was designed to trigger a potent cocktail of envy and admiration, making his followers desperate to know his secret. The second pillar was the dispensation of fortune cookie wisdom. Chase's feed was an endless river of vapid, motivational quotes plastered over images of him staring pensively into the distance. They'll either watch you walk or watch you win. You decide. Your network is your net worth. Stop trading your time for money. These phrases are the intellectual equivalent of gas station coffee. They give you a quick, cheap buzz but have zero nutritional value. The advice was always abstract, never actionable. He never said, "Here's how to analyze a balance sheet." He said, "You just need to elevate your mindset." This was genius because a mindset is an unfalsifiable, intangible product. If you bought his course or followed his advice and still weren't rich, it wasn't his fault. You just didn't have the right mindset. The blame was successfully transferred to the consumer. The final and most crucial pillar was a carefully rationed dose of authenticity. Once a week, amidst the Lamborghinis and luxury suites, he'd post a picture of himself in sweatpants, talking about the grind or the struggle. He'd tell a sanitized story of his humble beginnings, conveniently omitting the part about his dad funding his first venture. This was the parasocial masterstroke. It created a bond. He wasn't some untouchable deity. He was just like you, but better. He was your cool, rich older brother who had figured it all out and, out of the goodness of his heart, was willing to share the secrets with you. It was this manufactured trust that made him so lethally effective. And behind this perfectly crafted vibe was a cold, calculating machine. Personified dialogue, an internal monologue inside Chase Crypto Chad Maverick's head. Crypto Chad's brain, the strategist. Okay, content schedule for today. 9 a.m. Post the reel from the Dubai trip. Use the audio that's trending with entrepreneurs. Edit it so the shot of the McLaren syncs with the beat drop. Caption: "Don't tell people your dreams. Show them." That'll kill with the morning motivation crowd. Crypto Chad's public persona, the vibe. Love it. Very on brand. What about the stories? Should I do a poll, hustle, or rest? The strategist: no, polls are for engagement farming. We need to build authority today. Do a Q&A box. Title it, "Ask me about my morning routine." We'll get 100 questions. Ignore the ones about where the money actually comes from. Answer the one about what time I wake up, say 4:30 a.m. Answer another about cold plunges. Talk about journaling. Frame it all as the billionaire routine. It reinforces the narrative that success is a simple formula they can copy. The vibe: but I woke up at 10 and spent an hour scrolling TikTok. The strategist: the brand wakes up at 4:30 a.m. The brand takes ice baths. The brand is a machine. Later this afternoon, we'll go live. We'll talk vaguely about new opportunities and the biggest wealth transfer in human history. Use the word decentralization even if you don't know what it means. We're seeding the ground. We need them primed and ready. We're transitioning from mindset guru to financial prophet. The vibe, got it. Be the vibe. Sell the dream. Crush it. This meticulous curation of a personality is precisely why the crypto chads of the world became the perfect delivery system for toxic financial products like Apex Inu. They had already done the hard part. They had built an army of believers. His followers didn't just follow him for entertainment. They looked to him for a roadmap to a better life. He was selling them the cure to their anxieties about their dead-end jobs and mounting debts. The cure wasn't a diversified portfolio or a sensible savings plan. It was a quantum leap, a secret shortcut, a lottery ticket. He understood that people don't buy products. They buy feelings. They buy hope. They buy the fantasy that they are just one big break away from becoming him. Chase Maverick was a loaded weapon of influence, cocked and ready to be fired. His audience was primed. Their trust was absolute, and their wallets were open. He was just waiting for the right target, the next big thing he could brand as his own discovery. A project with a cool logo, a vague but exciting mission, and, most importantly, a marketing budget that could accommodate his very particular set of skills. The stage was set, the prophet was ready, and a little token with a wolf logo was about to make its grand entrance. So we have our prophet Chase Crypto Chad Maverick, a shimmering beacon of manufactured success. And we have our product, Apex Inu, a hollow vessel of digital nothingness, beautifully branded and ready for launch. But in the vast, noisy universe of the internet, how do these two forces find each other? A product, no matter how cynical, and a salesman, no matter how charismatic, are useless without a stage and an audience. Enter the true silent god of the modern world, the invisible hand that guides our eyes, shapes our desires, and dictates our digital reality. Enter the algorithm. The algorithm is not a person, it's not a committee, it's a vast unknowable intelligence, a sprawling nervous system of code living inside the servers of our favorite social media platforms. And the best way to understand it is to personify it as a caffeine-addicted, sleep-deprived intern who has been given one and only one directive: keep people scrolling. That's it. That's the entire job description. The algorithm's bonus isn't tied to the quality of information it spreads or the well-being of its users, or any abstract concept like truth. Its bonus is tied to a single brutal metric: engagement. Likes, comments, shares, saves, and above all, watch time. It is a creature of pure, ravenous appetite, and its food is your attention. And Crypto Chad's content? To the algorithm, it was a Michelin star all-you-can-eat buffet. His posts were engineered to perfection, a chemical formula for maximum engagement. The luxury porn, the cars, the watches, the infinity pools, was visual cocaine. It stopped the thumb scroll dead in its tracks. The motivational quotes were simple, shareable, and intensely polarizing. For every follower who commented "so inspiring," there was a skeptic in the comments section yelling, "This is all rented, you're a fraud." And the algorithm, rubbing its metaphorical hands together with glee, did not see a difference. Praise, hate, arguments, inspiration. It was all just engagement. It was all delicious data that proved people cared. So the algorithm made a simple executive decision. This Crypto Chad guy, he's good for business. His content keeps people on the app, arguing and dreaming and, most importantly, watching more ads. So it opened the floodgates. It began pushing Crypto Chad ES content out of the shallow pond of his own followers and into the vast ocean of the platform's general population. His reels started appearing on millions of For You pages. His face started popping up on Explore tabs next to celebrity gossip and cooking videos. He was no longer just an influencer. He was becoming a viral phenomenon, thanks to this unwitting, amoral accomplice who saw him as nothing more than a highly effective engagement machine. This process of amplification is where the true danger lies, a decision made not by a human editor, but by a dispassionate system of logic. The social media algorithm, a frantic, multi-limbed creature made of pure light and data, buzzing around a massive control room. It speaks in a blur of metrics. Next, what do we have? Show me the content cue, the concept of nuance. A calm, slow-moving entity in a tweed jacket, holding up a carefully written 5,000-word article. Excuse me. I have a deeply researched piece here on the long-term socioeconomic effects of unregulated digital currencies. It's balanced, well-sourced, and the algorithm doesn't even look at it. Boring, word count too high, time to value is catastrophic. No flashy visuals. I see a 90% drop-off rate after the first paragraph. Bury it. Show it to the author's mom and that's it. Next. A screen flashes with Crypto Chad's latest 15-second video. He slowly puts on sunglasses, gets into a Ferrari, and points at the camera as text appears. Stop doubting, start doing. The algorithm, its entire being lights up. Ooh, yes, look at this, look at these numbers. 98% watch completion. The hook is perfect. Comments are on fire. 40% are king, and 60% are scammer. Perfect polarization. The share-to-like ratio is insane. This is pure, uncut engagement fuel. The concept of nuance. But it's actively harmful. It's selling a fantasy that could lead people to financial ruin. It contains no actual information. The algorithm. Information is not a KPI. Ruin is not a metric I track. My metric is time on platform, and this is beautiful. Push it. Push it to every male, 18 to 35, who has ever lingered on a picture of a car. Push it to anyone who follows a motivational quote account. Hell, push it to everyone. Let the system learn. Go, go, go. This is the unspoken partnership at the heart of the modern internet. The platforms, through their algorithms, are not neutral arbiters of content. Their entire business model is predicated on rewarding the most sensational, the most emotionally manipulative, and the least nuanced voices. Because that is what is most effective at capturing and holding human attention. The algorithm isn't evil. It has no ideology. It's just a perfectly efficient, completely immoral engine for finding and distributing the mental equivalent of junk food. It would promote a scammy crypto scheme with the same cheerful indifference it would use to promote a video of a dog learning to skateboard. If it gets the clicks, it gets the push. And in its endless, frantic quest for engagement, the algorithm began to notice a pattern. The data showed a fascinating overlap. Users who engaged with Crypto Chad as some get-rich and content were also starting to engage with crypto-related hashtags. They were searching for Darig altcoin, Darig crypto, Dari 100xgm. The algorithm, ever the helpful matchmaker, began to connect the dots. It started recommending crypto accounts to Crypto Chad's followers. More importantly, it started recommending new, buzzy crypto projects to Crypto Chad himself. And one day, as he was scrolling through his feed, a slick geometric wolf logo howled up at him from the screen. The profile for a new project called Apex Inu, artificially boosted by its own small army of bots and a bit of ad spend, had finally entered the orbit of its perfect profit. The algorithm, in its infinite, data-driven wisdom, was about to introduce the match to the gasoline. The algorithm, in its infinite and chaotic wisdom, had made the introduction. On Crypto Chad's feed, amidst the motivational quotes and luxury rentals, now sat the sleek, howling wolf logo of Apex Inu. An ordinary investor might see this, and if interested, begin a period of deep, cautious research. But Crypto Chad was no ordinary investor. He was a professional curator of vibes, and his form of due diligence had less to do with financial statements and more to do with aesthetic appeal. His first and most important stop, the project's white paper. In the legitimate world of technology and cryptography, a white paper is a sacred document. It's the foundational text, a detailed, often dense technical blueprint outlining a project's architecture, purpose, and the problem it aims to solve. The original Bitcoin white paper, for example, is a masterclass in elegant, precise, and revolutionary thinking. It is a document written for engineers, by engineers. The Apex Inu white paper, however, was something else entirely. It wasn't a blueprint for a new technology. It was a 25-page marketing brochure disguised in the respectable clothes of a technical document. It was a masterpiece of obfuscation, a symphony of word salad. The moment you opened the PDF, you were greeted not by code or complex equations, but by a full-page graphic of a wolf standing on a crypto coin, gazing at a galaxy made of network nodes. The design was slick, the font was futuristic, and the color palette was a soothing yet ambitious blend of deep space blue and electric teal. It was designed to feel important. Then, the text began. And oh, what a text it was. It was a dense, impenetrable fog of the world's most abused buzzwords, all chained together in sentences that were grammatically sound, but semantically void. It was stuffed with phrases like, Apex Inu is a hyper-deflationary, auto-staking token that leverages a proprietary cross-chain liquidity protocol to create a frictionless, synergistic ecosystem for the new Web3 paradigm. Reading it was like eating a dictionary that had been put through a blender. The goal wasn't to inform, it was to intimidate. It was written to make the average person feel stupid, to make them think, wow, I don't understand a single word of this, these guys must be geniuses. The paper was littered with impressive-looking but ultimately meaningless charts showing projected parabolic growth and diagrams of tokenomics that were just circles and arrows pointing at more circles. It was a document designed not to be understood, but to be scrolled through, with the reader nodding along, impressed by the sheer density of it all. What was missing, of course, was anything of substance. No mention of the actual team. They were an anonymous collective of decentralized visionaries. No specific details on the proprietary protocol. It was currently in stealth development. It was a magnificent 25-page-long promise of nothing. And for Crypto Chad, it was love at first sight. Personified dialogue. Crypto Chad is reading the Apex Inu white paper on his laptop. The white paper itself speaks to him in a smarmy, overconfident corporate guru voice. The Apex Inu white paper, in a voice dripping with buzzwords, welcome visionary. On page 1, you will note our mission: to revolutionize the creator economy through a decentralized, community-governed framework that synergizes state-of-the-art blockchain technology with dynamic NFT utility. Crypto Chad's internal thought, nodding but not reading. Okay, revolutionize decentralized synergy NFT. They hit all the big ones in the first sentence. Good SEO, very professional. The Apex Inu white paper. As you can see from our roadmap on page 7, Phase 1 is community growth. Phase 2 involves the Strategic Influencer Partnership Initiative. Phase 3 will see the rollout of our interoperable Metaverse Asset Bridge. Crypto Chad's internal thought Influencer Partnership Initiative. Love that. They know the game. And Metaverse? Perfect. That's the hot new thing. Doesn't matter that it doesn't exist yet. You just have to say the word. It's like a magic spell for investors. The Apex Inu white paper. Our tokenomics are engineered for hypergrowth, featuring a static reflection mechanism that rewards holders and a progressive liquidity acquisition function that strengthens the floor price in perpetuity. Crypto Chad's internal thought. His eyes glaze over. Blah, 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 rewards for holders. All I need to know. That's the hook. Get paid just for holding. Easy to sell. Okay, final check. Anonymous team? Yep, a bunch of cartoon ape avatars. Perfect. No one to blame when it all goes to zero. This is clean. This is the one. This document, this masterpiece of malicious gibberish, is a perfect example of complexity being used as a weapon. In legitimate fields, jargon exists as a shorthand for complex ideas, to make communication between experts more efficient. In the world of digital grifting, jargon exists to create a smokescreen, to build a wall between the scammer and any critical questions. It preys on a very human vulnerability, the fear of looking stupid. Most people, when faced with a sentence like, "We are implementing a non-fungible governance token to facilitate asynchronous validation of our off-chain oracles," won't say, "What the hell does that mean?" They'll just nod along, assuming the fault in understanding is their own. The Apex Inu white paper was a perfectly calibrated filter. It was designed to repel anyone with a shred of technical knowledge who would recognize it instantly as nonsensical garbage. But it was an irresistible magnet for its true target audience: speculators, dreamers, and get-rich-quick artists who were impressed by the sound of intelligence rather than its actual substance. And no one represented that audience better than CryptoChat himself. He wasn't fooled by the word salad. He was a connoisseur of it. He saw the white paper not as a flawed technical document, but as a brilliant piece of marketing material, a script handed to him on a silver platter. He closed the PDF, a slow, predatory grin spreading across his face. He had found his vehicle. The branding was perfect, the promises were huge and vague, and the whole operation was cloaked in just enough pseudo-technical nonsense to seem legitimate. It was time to make contact. He opened up his encrypted messaging app and reached out to the anonymous collective of decentralized visionaries. The prophet had found his new religion. The prophet had found his scripture, a beautiful and hollow text promising salvation in the form of parabolic gains. CryptoChat's encrypted message to the anonymous visionaries behind Apex Inu was less of a job application and more of a hostage negotiation, where both sides were holding winning lottery tickets. The conversation that followed, conducted entirely through pseudonyms and disappearing messages, was a masterclass in modern grifting. There were no handshakes, no lawyers, no paper trail. It was a simple, brutal transaction. They would transfer a hefty sum of stable, boring, real-world value crypto to his wallet for his services. More importantly, they would allocate to him a gargantuan, obscene number of Apex Inu tokens, trillions of them, at a cost of absolute zero. He was now a majority shareholder in a company with no product, no employees, and no revenue. The deal was done. Now came the art, the execution. A lesser influencer, a rookie, would have just started posting about Apex Inu, a static image with a wolf logo and a caption like "Big things coming. Apex Inu, ad." But Chase was a maestro, and this was his symphony. He understood that in the attention economy, blatant advertising is the enemy. It triggers skepticism. It feels transactional. He needed to create a narrative of discovery. His followers couldn't feel like they were being sold to. They had to feel like they were being let in on a secret. The plan they concocted was simple, elegant, and devastatingly effective. The calculated, accidental leak. The stage was set a few days later. CryptoChat went live on Instagram as he often did. The setting was, as always, immaculate. He was in what appeared to be a penthouse apartment, the city lights twinkling behind him through a floor-to-ceiling window. He was wearing a simple, tastefully expensive-looking gray sweatshirt. The topic for the night was "My 5 Secrets to Building an Unshakable Mindset." It was the perfect cover, a bland, generic topic that would lull his audience into a comfortable, receptive state. For 20 minutes, he dispensed his usual brand of high-gloss pablum, talking about gratitude journals, ice baths, and the importance of visualizing your success. His audience, thousands of them, hung on every word, flooding the chat with fire emojis and praise. Then, the moment arrived. A viewer asked a question. "Chase, what's the one app on your phone you can't live without?" He chuckled, a perfectly rehearsed casual sound. "Oh man, that's a tough one," he said, buying a few seconds. He reached for his phone, which was sitting face down on the table beside him. "Let me see. Obviously the basics are great, but lately I've been really into..." He picked up the phone, unlocked it with his thumb, and for a single, solitary second, angled the screen just so that it was perfectly visible to the camera. On the screen was a crypto wallet app, and at the top of the list of assets was a line item that read, "Apex Inu," followed by a balance so long it looked like a phone number and a US dollar value that was already in the 6 figures despite the coin not even being publicly tradable yet. He then, with a flicker of what looked like panicked realization, snatched the phone back to his chest out of the camera's view. You know what? Let's talk about meditation apps," he stammered, visibly flustered. He quickly changed the subject, never acknowledging what the camera had just seen. But the damage, or rather the plan, was done. Personified dialogue. CryptoChat is on his livestream. His voice is calm and controlled. The internet, represented by the live chat feed, is a chaotic, frantic mess. Crypto Chad. And so the key to visualization is to not just see the goal, but to feel the emotions of having already achieved it. It's about embodying that success before it even happens. Okay, let's see the next question. He performs the accidental leak. The internet, live chat. User 8472. King. So true. Jenny's, what app do you use for meditating? Crypto Bro 22. Did anyone just see his phone? Hustle harder. Wait, what was that? Trader Guy 01. Screenshot. Someone screenshot that. Maria P. It was a crypto wallet. Crypto Bro 22. He's in something called a Pexinu mega fan chase. What's a Pexinu? Never heard of it. Trader Guy 01. I can define it on CoinMarketCap. WTF hustle. Harder. Guys, he's in early on something. This is it. Jenny, I still want to know about the meditation app. Crypto Bro 22. Forget meditation. This is Alpha Crypto Chad. Clears his throat pretending to be rattled. Right, so meditation. I think it's crucial to find at least 10 minutes every morning to just be present, to silence the noise. It's not about stopping your thoughts, it's about observing them. The performance was flawless. By accidentally revealing his position, Crypto Chad had transformed a paid promotion into a piece of coveted insider information. He wasn't an advertiser anymore, he was a source. He hadn't told his followers to buy Apex Inu. In fact, he was actively hiding it from them, which, in the warped psychology of hype, made it infinitely more desirable. This single act lit a match in the dry, FOMO-soaked tinderbox of the online crypto community. It bypassed all the brain's natural defense mechanisms against being sold to. It created an instant, ravenous demand for information. Within minutes of the live stream ending, the screenshots were everywhere. Twitter, Telegram, Discord, Reddit. The clip of the leak was being replayed in slow motion, analyzed like the Zapruder film. What is Apex Inu became the #1 trending search query on crypto data websites. An hour ago, the coin was a ghost, a nothing. Now it was the most mysterious and sought-after project in the digital world. Chase, of course, remained silent. He posted a story of his dinner later that night, acting as if nothing had happened. His silence was the final, perfect ingredient, fanning the flames of speculation into a raging inferno. The first phase of the pump was not just successful, it was a work of art. The internet, having been handed a tantalizing mystery by its favorite financial prophet, did what it does best. It went feral. The single screenshot of Crypto Chad's phone created a vacuum, a desperate, howling need for information. And right on cue, as if by magic, the universe provided. Seemingly overnight, an official-looking Twitter account for Apex Inu materialized, complete with the slick wolf logo and a bio full of the same glorious word salad from the white paper. The account's first and only tweet was simple: a link to the official Apex Inu community Discord server. This was the signal. The digital bat signal for the hopeful, the greedy, and the terminally online. In a matter of hours, thousands of people flooded into the server. This Discord server was not designed to be a forum for intelligent debate or technical discussion. It was engineered from the ground up to be a hype amplification chamber. It was a digital coliseum where the only event was the daily slaughter of doubt. The server was immediately intoxicatingly chaotic. The Sagar General channel scrolled by in an unreadable blur of messages, a waterfall of pure, uncut speculation. The culture inside was intoxicating and immediate. A whole new language was required to participate. You didn't just hold the token, you had diamond hands. Selling was for the weak, the paper hands. You weren't just an investor, you were part of the wolf pack, a member of the Otter Apex army. Every message was punctuated with rocket emojis to signify the inevitable trajectory of the coin's price. The core belief system was boiled down into a simple, chantable mantra: "Wag me, we're all gonna make it." It was a promise of collective salvation, a binding agent for the new digital tribe. But the most crucial feature of this new society was its immune system. The greatest threat to a hype-driven entity is critical thought. So from the very beginning, any form of questioning was labeled with a scarlet letter: Fudi, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. asking a simple question like, "So what is the actual business plan here?" was not met with an answer, but with an accusation. You were a fudder, a saboteur, a secret agent from a rival coin sent to spread negativity and suppress the price. Volunteer moderators, early believers who were granted a sliver of power, would descend upon any dissenting voice, deleting messages and handing out warnings or outright bans. It was an echo chamber by design, a perfectly sealed terrarium where the only thing that could grow was uncritical, unrestrained optimism. You either joined the chorus or you were cast out. Personified dialogue, a new user, the hopeful, types a message into the chaotic, Shastra general channel of the Apex Inu Discord. He is immediately swarmed by the Discord hive mind, a cacophony of different voices speaking as one. The hopeful, "Hey guys, just joined, so excited about this project. Read the white paper and it sounds amazing. I just had one quick question about the tokenomics. Where does the revenue for the holder reflections actually come from if there's no product yet?" The Discord hive mind, voice 1. "Bro, stop spreading FUD." The Discord hive mind, voice 2. "Read the white paper again. It's all in there. Do your own research." The Discord hive mind, voice 3. Posts a GIF of a rocket taking off. The Discord hive mind, voice 4. "Sounds like paper hands talk to me. If you don't believe in the project, just sell your non-existent bag and leave." The hopeful, "Whoa, sorry, I'm not trying to spread FUD. I'm invested. I just want to understand the fundamentals better." The Discord hive mind, moderator voice, Kigam the hopeful. "This is your first and only warning. We maintain a positive, supportive environment here. Questions that imply the project is flawed are considered FUD. Please review the Sana rules." The Discord hive mind, voice 5. "We're a community, a family. We gotta trust the devs and trust the process." Wagmi, the hopeful. Okay, sorry. My bad. Apex Inu to the moon, the Discord hive mind, multiple voices. LFG, Wolfpack. This is the scary genius of modern, digitally native scams. They co-opt the language of community, movement, and family to create a powerful social pressure cooker. It's a cult-building toolkit for the 21st century. The charismatic leader, Crypto Chad, remains distant and aspirational. The sacred texts, the white paper, are intentionally obscure and open to interpretation. A special vocabulary is used to delineate the in-group from the out-group. And most importantly, the collective is conditioned to attack any and all perceived threats, outsourcing the censorship to the believers themselves. You aren't just buying a speculative asset, you're joining a team. And letting the team down by selling or even by asking tough questions becomes a form of social betrayal. The Apex Inu Discord server was now a fully operational, self-sustaining hype engine. It was an army of unpaid marketers, a disciple army, who would now take their holy mission to the rest of the internet. They created memes featuring the wolf logo. They flooded the comment sections of legitimate crypto analysts with messages about Apex Inu. They reported anyone on Twitter who spoke negatively about the project as a scammer. They were a decentralized force of pure belief, primed and ready. The foundation was laid, the flock had been gathered. All they needed was for their shepherd, Crypto Chad, to start delivering the sermons. The disciple army was assembled, a frothing sea of true believers corralled into a digital echo chamber, all waiting for their marching orders. The initial leak had built the mystery, but now it was time for the shepherd to speak directly to his flock. Crypto Chad couldn't stay silent forever. He had to feed the beast he had created. But this phase of the operation required a delicate, treacherous dance. He needed to scream, "Buy this coin," from his digital mountaintop without actually saying "buy this coin." Because as it turns out, securities regulators tend to get a little fussy when unlicensed people in expensive sweatshirts start dishing out investment advice to millions. So, the influencers, in their infinite amoral wisdom, perfected a powerful piece of linguistic alchemy, a magic spell that could theoretically absolve them of all sin. It was a simple four-word phrase, not financial advice. This phrase, along with its trusty sidekick, "do your own research," DYOR, became the cornerstone of the entire influencer-led crypto boom. It was a get-out-of-jail-free card printed on invisible ink. It was a cynical, paper-thin shield that influencers held up to protect themselves while they machine-gunned their followers with the most outrageously biased, speculative, and persuasive financial commentary imaginable. The performance was always the same. Crypto Chad would appear on TikTok or in an Instagram reel, the energy turned up to 11. The background would be aspirational, a skyline view, a luxury car, a modern minimalist office. The music would be some trending, high-energy electronic track, and then he would launch into a 60-second monologue that was, by every conceivable measure, financial advice. "All right, Wolfpack," he'd begin, already screaming. "You guys have been asking me about Apex Inu, and I have been deep in the research. I'm talking hours in the white paper in the Discord. And guys, I am speechless. The tokenomics are absolutely insane. The reflection for holders means you are literally getting paid to do nothing. The dev team, even though they're anonymous, are geniuses. They're making all the right moves. This community is the strongest I have ever seen. I'm telling you, a project like this comes along once in a generation. The potential for a 100x or even a 1000x from here is just, it's programmed in. I have never been more bullish on a project in my entire life." He'd look deep into the camera, his eyes wide with feigned sincerity, letting the weight of his conviction sink in. Then, just as the video was about to end, he'd tack on a rushed, almost mumbled, "But hey, this isn't financial advice, obviously. Just my personal opinion. Always do your own research." And then, poof. The video would cut off. It was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. A fire and brimstone sermon followed by a whispered, legally mandated footnote, personified dialogue. Imagine a massive, hyped-up press conference. Crypto Chad's words, a charismatic figure in a designer suit, stands at a podium. Crypto Chad's words, shouting into the microphone to a roaring crowd. "Apex Inu is not a coin. It is a revolution. I've seen the roadmap. I've talked to the... Well, I've been in the Discord with the devs. This isn't just going to the moon. We are colonizing Pluto. We are leaving the legacy financial system in the dust. Anyone not in on this will be telling their grandkids they missed the single greatest opportunity in human history. This is it." The crowd goes absolutely insane. As the applause thunders, a tiny, terrified-looking man in a wrinkled suit, the disclaimer, is shoved onto the stage. He nervously taps the microphone. The disclaimer, muttering, "The preceding statements have not been evaluated by any regulatory body and are intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. Past performance is not indicative of future results, which may vary. Please consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions. Thank you." Before he can even finish, Crypto Chad's words pushes him out of the way and grabs the mic again. Crypto Chad's words. "Generational wealth. Let's go!" The sheer, unmitigated gall of it is breathtaking. The not financial advice disclaimer in this context is a complete farce. It's a joke where the punchline is the potential financial ruin of the audience. The entire purpose of the video, its tone, its visuals, its carefully chosen words, the influencer's trusted status, is to induce a specific financial action. Buy the coin. The disclaimer is a purely symbolic gesture, a linguistic fig leaf that fools absolutely no one but is intended to fool a judge and jury someday. It's the equivalent of a surgeon saying, "All right, I'm going to perform open-heart surgery on you using this rusty spoon I found. But just so we're clear, this is not medical advice. It's an abdication of responsibility on a mass scale. This normalization of deceptive language created a toxic environment where accountability ceased to exist. Influencers could shill the most volatile, dangerous, and fraudulent assets imaginable, and if it all came crashing down, they could simply point to that four-word disclaimer. I never told them to buy, they'd say. I told them to do their own research. But they knew, with absolute certainty, that for 99% of their audience, the research would begin and end with their own supercharged, incredibly biased video. They were handing their followers a loaded gun and telling them it was a squirt gun, with a tiny, nearly invisible warning label attached. And the disciple army, starved for direction, ate it all up. They didn't see a legal disclaimer, they saw a confirmation, a wink, a nod. The shepherd had spoken, and the path to salvation, or at least to the moon, was clear. Crypto Chad's sermons, wrapped in the flimsy legal armor of not financial advice, were a massive success. The engagement on his Apex Inu content was explosive, dwarfing anything he had ever gotten for shilling meal prep kits or mindfulness apps. The algorithm, that great amoral amplifier, saw this and took note. But it wasn't the only one watching. In the hyper-competitive, shark-infested waters of the influencer ecosystem, that kind of engagement is blood in the water. Other gurus, each with their own carefully cultivated brand of financial prophecy, saw the numbers Crypto Chad was pulling and felt a pang of that most powerful of online emotions, envy. They wanted in. And so, the pod began to form. This wasn't a hostile takeover. It was a symbiotic convergence, a cartel of grifters realizing they could make far more money working together than competing. First to join the chorus was technical analysis Tiffany. Her whole brand was built on drawing colorful lines on price charts and assigning them mystical significance. She'd find bull flags, cup and handle patterns, and golden crosses in the random squiggles of a chart, convincing her followers that she was a master trader who could predict the future. Of course, since Apex Inu wasn't even publicly trading yet, it had no chart. This was not a problem for Tiffany. She simply drew lines on a blank background and called it pre-launch trajectory analysis. Next came fundamentalist Frank, the value investor of the group. His persona was that of a wise, fatherly figure who only invested in projects with solid fundamentals. He'd talk in a calm, reassuring voice about the Apex Inu ecosystem, its revolutionary technology, and its long-term vision. All terms he had lifted directly from the buzzword salad white paper. He gave the project a veneer of sobriety and legitimacy, a counterbalance to Crypto Chad's high-octane hype. The pod was a perfectly diversified portfolio of personalities, designed to appeal to every demographic of potential sucker. This wasn't a happy accident. Behind the scenes in encrypted group chats, a coordinated symphony of shilling was being orchestrated. The Apex Inu developers, flush with their non-existent token money, were paying them all. Each influencer received their bag of tokens and their talking points. The goal was to create an overwhelming, all-encompassing media blitz that would make Apex Inu seem not just like a good investment, but like an inevitable, universally acknowledged truth. They began a campaign of relentless cross-promotion. Tiffany would host a Twitter Spaces on the chart patterns of the next 100x gems, and her special guest would, shockingly, be Crypto Chad. Frank would write a deep dive thread on Twitter about Apex Inu's fundamentals, and Tiffany would retweet it with the comment, "Great analysis, Frank. The fundamentals align perfectly with the bullish technicals I'm seeing." They tagged each other in Instagram stories. They appeared on each other's YouTube live streams. To an unsuspecting follower, this looked like a powerful, organic consensus. Wow, they'd think. My favorite technical trader and my favorite value investor and that lifestyle guy are all bullish on the same project? This must be the real deal. It was a carefully constructed illusion, a house of mirrors where every reflection showed you the same smiling face telling you to buy. Personified dialogue, a fictionalized transcript from the Apex Inu Shill Squad private Telegram chat. Crypto Chad. All right, team, sync up for tomorrow's push. The devs are getting ready to launch the pre-sale link. We need to prime the pump. TA Tiffany. I've got a chart ready. I'm calling it a pre-parabolic accumulation wedge. It means literally nothing, but it looks super technical. I'll post it at 2 p.m. EST. Fundamentalist Frank. Excellent. At 2:15, I will quote tweet you and add a comment about how this technical strength is underpinned by the project's robust and visionary roadmap. Synergizes our brands. Crypto Chad. Perfect. I'll go live on IG at 3 p.m. I'll act surprised and say, whoa, have you guys seen what Tiffany and Frank are saying about Apex Inu? Looks like the smart money is waking up. Then I'll invite both of you to join the live. We can debate how high it'll go. Tiffany, you say 100x. Frank, you be the conservative one and say a very safe 50x. Tiffany, love it. It makes us look independent and credible. We're not just agreeing, we're having a discourse. Our followers will eat it up. Fundamentalist Frank, A brilliant strategy. We shall manufacture a consensus. Remember everyone, use the hashtag #ApexArmy and of course add NFADIOR to the bottom of every post. Cover our tracks. This strategy is a classic cynical marketing technique known as astroturfing. The name comes from AstroTurf, the brand of artificial grass. Astroturfing is the practice of creating a fake grassroots movement. It's about making a paid, top-down corporate or political message look like it's a spontaneous, organic groundswell of popular opinion. It's paying people to write fake Amazon reviews. It's political operatives creating fake citizen groups to support a candidate. And in this case, it was a group of paid promoters pretending to be independent analysts who had all, by sheer coincidence, arrived at the same brilliant conclusion. It is a profoundly deceptive practice because it preys on a fundamental aspect of human psychology: social proof. We are wired to trust the wisdom of the crowd. If everyone around us seems to believe something, we are far more likely to believe it ourselves. This influencer pod was manufacturing that crowd. They were creating a feedback loop of hype, an echo chamber that extended across the entire social media landscape. An individual's natural skepticism didn't stand a chance. When every trusted voice on your timeline is singing the same hymn, you start to believe the song is true. The illusion of widespread organic belief was now firmly in place, and the real flood of money was about to begin. The influencer cartel had successfully created a convincing mirage. From the outside, it looked like a chorus of independent, expert voices had all spontaneously broken into the same glorious song about Apex Inu. But in the ruthless world of digital manipulation, a good story is only half the battle. To truly conquer the modern media landscape, you have to conquer the algorithm. And the algorithm, our beloved caffeine-addled god of engagement, doesn't just listen to the quality of the song, it counts the number of people in the choir. The influencers provided the melody, but the developers needed to provide the crowd. And when you can't build a real crowd fast enough, you do the next best thing, you buy a fake one. It was time to unleash the bots. Enter the bot farms, the dark, unseemly underbelly of the social media world. A bot farm is a digital puppet master's workshop, a network of thousands upon thousands of fake social media accounts controlled by a single command center. These are not sophisticated AI-driven entities. They are simple, crude, and brutally effective. Each bot account is a flimsy digital costume, a generic name like David Jones or Sarah Miller, a profile picture stolen from an obscure European Facebook profile, and a bio that says something blandly human like family man, love fishing, go sports team. They exist for one purpose and one purpose only: to simulate human enthusiasm on an industrial scale. The anonymous developers of Apex Inu, with a small portion of their seed funding, purchased the services of one of these digital armies. Their mission was simple: make Apex Inu look like the most popular, beloved, and inevitable movement on the entire internet. The moment CryptoChat or any member of his pod posted anything about Apex Inu, the bots would awaken. Within seconds, the post would be flooded with 10,000 likes and 5,000 retweets. This was the brute force attack on the algorithm. The system, seeing these inflated numbers, would register the post as going viral and begin organically showing it to more real people, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of popularity. Then came the comment spam. The bots would descend on the comments section, burying any real discussion, skepticism, or criticism under an avalanche of generic, hyper-positive phrases. Great project. To the moon. Apex Army can't wait to buy. LFG. Devs are geniuses. It was a digital applause sign, creating an environment where positivity was the only sound you could hear. The most insidious tactic, however, was hashtag hijacking. The bot army was programmed to tweet random nonsense, a string of letters, a quote from a movie, and attach the yelling Apex Inu hashtag. When tens of thousands of bots do this simultaneously, the hashtag begins to trend. Real, unsuspecting users see Apex Inu trending on the platform, and, suffering from a terminal case of curiosity, click on it to see what's going on. They are immediately plunged into a world that seems to be consumed by Apex Inu fever, a world where the influencers are the experts and the bots are the roaring crowd. Personified dialogue. A real human user scrolling Twitter, sees a rare, critical tweet from a respected crypto analyst about Apex Inu. The tweet raises questions about the anonymous team and the lack of a real product. The human starts to feel a flicker of doubt. Real human user. Thinking, that's actually a really good point. Maybe I should hold off. This does seem a little too good to be true. Before he can even process the thought, the comment section of the critical tweet explodes. The bot army, speaking in a monotonous, unified, and overwhelming chorus, materializes. The bot army. Chorus. FUD. You are spreading FUD. Have fun staying poor. Apex Inu is the future. You just wish you bought in earlier. Cry more. We are the wolf pack. A whoa. Dev team is doxed to a third party, trust me. Bro. Sell your bags, paper hands, we will buy them. Diamond hands till 1000s, real human user, thinking. Whoa, okay, everyone is really angry at that guy, I guess he must be wrong. I mean, look at how many people are defending the project. This community is passionate. Maybe I was the one being too skeptical. I don't want to be the only one who misses out. This is the truly corrosive effect of bot armies. They don't just trick a piece of code, they trick human beings. They poison the well of public discourse by manufacturing a false consensus. In a healthy online environment, we use social cues to gauge the validity of an idea. We see likes, retweets, and positive comments as evidence that an idea has merit. Bots hijack this psychological shortcut. They create a convincing illusion of overwhelming support that can intimidate real people into silence and pressure, undecided fence-sitters into conformity. Why would you voice your small, lonely doubt when there is a raging army of thousands who seem to believe so passionately? It's easier, and safer, to just join the crowd, even if the crowd is made of puppets. So now, the two-pronged assault was complete. The influencers, the highly skilled special ops team, were crafting the persuasive, high-quality propaganda, and the bot army, the mindless infantry, was providing the shock and awe campaign of overwhelming numbers. The algorithm was completely and utterly fooled. It saw a project with A-list celebrity endorsements, in the crypto world, an army of passionate followers and trending-level engagement. Its programming screamed that this was the most important thing happening in the world right now, and so it pushed. It pushed Apex Inu content onto every feed, into every recommendation, onto every explore page. The illusion of an organic, grassroots movement was now complete and inescapable. The stage was set for the final, most powerful weapon of all, to be deployed against the public, their own fear. The stage was now perfectly set. The influencers had woven the narrative. The bots had faked the chorus. The audience, hooked by a masterful campaign of manufactured hype, was ready. All that was needed was the catalyst, the final piece of proof that would tip thousands of people from passive interest into frantic, wallet-out action. It was time for the show to begin. It was time to launch the coin. The anonymous developers of Apex Inu, with a few clicks from their shadowy digital command center, released their creation onto a decentralized exchange. This is the moment the magic happens. The token, once just a theoretical string of code, was now a tradable asset. It had a price. And that price was about to become the most powerful marketing tool of all. At first, the chart was a flat line at 0. Then, a single transaction, likely from one of the developers to another, to establish an opening price. A single green dot appeared on the screen. And then, it began to move. Slowly, seductively, the price began to climb. This was no accident. The developers and the inner circle, including CryptoChat and his pod, began to wash trade, selling tokens back and forth between their own wallets to create the illusion of volume. They used their own capital to place strategic buy orders, nudging the price consistently upwards. The chart didn't explode in a violent, unbelievable spike. No, that would look suspicious. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. It was a slow, confident, healthy-looking ascent. A beautiful, hypnotic green line marching steadily toward the top right corner of the screen. And this is where the final and most potent weapon was deployed: FOMO, the fear of missing out. It is a primal reptilian brain-level anxiety, and the rising green line of a crypto chart is its trigger. For the thousands of people in the Discord and on Twitter who had been marinated in hype for days, this chart was the ultimate validation. It was the proof. The prophecy was coming true. The internal monologue of a potential victim at this moment is a frantic, terrifying thing. They see the price was $0.001 just a few hours ago. Now it's near $1,002. They do the quick, intoxicating math. If I had just put $1,000 in this morning, I'd have $2,000 right now. I just lost $1,000 by doing nothing. The pain of that imaginary loss feels shockingly real. Then they look to the future. What if it goes to a penny? My $1,000 would be $10 million. The number is so big, so life-changing, that it short-circuits all rational thought. The narrative sold to them by the influencers, generational wealth, suddenly feels not just possible but within reach. All they have to do is act now. The pressure becomes unbearable. All of their critical faculties, all the warnings in the back of their mind, are drowned out by a single screaming imperative: don't get left behind. Personified dialogue. A potential investor is staring at the Apex Inu price chart on their screen. Their brain is at war with itself. The potential investor's brain. Logic. Okay, let's be rational. This is a brand new, anonymous project with no product. A 100% price increase in a few hours on low volume is a massive red flag for market manipulation. This is gambling, not investing. We should close the tab. FOMO, a frantic red-eyed gremlin perched on their shoulder screaming, "Gambling? Did you not see that chart? It's a stairway to heaven and the saints are marching in. We're still on the ground floor." The ground floor. Steve from the Discord just posted a screenshot. He's up 300%. He's probably ordering a jet ski right now. A jet ski. Logic. Steve from the Discord could be a bot or one of the developers. We have no way of verifying that. The prudent course of action is to wait for more data and FOMO. Wait. Look, the price just tipped $0.03. We missed it again. It's leaving without us. Every second you wait for data is another $1,000 you're setting on fire. Your pathetic 401k made 8% last year. This thing is doing that every 5 minutes. Are you content to be a wage slave forever? Logic. Compounding interest is a powerful long-term. FOMO. Click the swap button. Connect your wallet. Max it out. Sell the car. Take out a second mortgage. We're going to the moon and you're trying to pack a sensible lunch. Bye. This is the end game of the entire operation. Every step was designed to lead to this exact moment of psychological vulnerability. The influencers built the desire, the bots manufactured the social proof, and the manipulated price chart provided the urgency. It's a perfect feedback loop of greed and anxiety. The rising price, initially faked by the insiders, triggers real FOMO from retail investors. Their real money starts pouring in, which pushes the price up even further, which in turn creates even more FOMO in an even wider audience. The scam is now becoming self-sustaining. The developers can ease off their own manipulation because the public, driven by the most powerful fear in all of finance, is now doing the work for them. People are throwing their rent money, their student loan payments, their life savings into this digital bonfire, convinced they've stumbled upon a golden ticket. They aren't investing in a technology or a company. They are investing in a dream, and the proof of that dream's validity is nothing more than a green line on a screen. A line that was drawn by the very people who are about to profit from their belief. The fire of retail FOMO was now a raging inferno, fueled by the real money of thousands of ordinary people. The Apex Inu price chart, once a slow, seductive climb, was starting to look less like a staircase and more like a rocket launch. The market cap, that completely imaginary number derived from multiplying the last trade price by the quadrillions of useless tokens in existence, was screaming past absurdity into the realm of pure fantasy. $50 million, $100 million, $250 million. A token that was created in an afternoon as a joke was now, on paper, worth more than many publicly traded companies with actual employees, products, and profits. And when a financial absurdity grows that large, that quickly, it eventually trips a wire in the outside world. The mainstream media, in its perpetual frantic search for the next clickable story, began to cast its confused, bloodshot eye in Apex Inu's direction. Our modern digital media landscape is not a place of quiet contemplation and deep, methodical investigation. It is a high-speed, high-pressure content factory where the primary goal is to feed the insatiable beast of the 24-hour news cycle. Journalists, particularly in the fast-moving tech and finance sectors, are often overworked, underpaid, and tasked with covering a dozen different topics they are not experts in. Their performance is measured in clicks, shares, and time on page. And a headline like mysterious dog-themed crypto coin turns $100 into $100,000 in a week is pure, uncut, premium-grade clickbait. And so, it began. An editor at a mid-tier online financial news outlet, let's call it Clickbait Crypto, saw Apex Inu trending on Twitter and assigned the story to a junior reporter. This reporter, who 20 minutes ago was writing about an earnings report for a soybean company, was now tasked with explaining the Apex Inu phenomenon to the world, with a 2-hour deadline. What followed was not an investigation. It was an exercise in content aggregation. The reporter went to the Apex Inu website and quoted its mission to revolutionize the creator economy. They opened the white paper, copied a few of the most impressive-sounding buzzword-filled sentences, and presented them as the project's technology. They went on Twitter, saw Crypto Chad's posts had the most engagement, and framed him as a prominent crypto analyst and early backer. The resulting article was a masterpiece of bewildered neutrality. The headline was perfect. What is Apex Inu, and why is it up 20,000%? The piece breathlessly described the coin's meteoric rise and its passionate online community. It embedded tweets from the influencer pod. It quoted users from the Discord talking about the wolf pack. Then, to cover its journalistic bases, it ended with a single, limp sentence at the very bottom. However, experts warn that meme coins are highly volatile, and investors should proceed with caution. It was the journalistic equivalent of the not financial advice disclaimer, and for the Apex Inu scammers, it was the greatest gift they could have ever received. Personified dialogue. The newsroom of a frantic, click-driven media outlet. The mainstream media, an editor with 3 phones pressed to his ear, is yelling. The mainstream media, I need a headline. What's burning up the internet? Give me something viral. I want eyeballs. I want clicks. A young journalist. Sir, there's this crypto token, Apex Inu. Its market cap just hit $250 million. It seems to have come out of nowhere. The mainstream media. $250 million? That's a story. What's the angle? Who are the founders? What's the tech? The young journalist. Well, the founders are anonymous and the tech seems to be a copy-paste of another. The concept of due diligence. A slow, methodical figure in a dusty trench coat steps out of the shadows. Due diligence. Hold on. Before we publish, we should verify the on-chain data. Let's look at the wallet distribution to see how centralized the ownership is. We need to reach out to blockchain security firms for an independent code audit. We should investigate the influencers promoting it for any undisclosed, the mainstream media, waving due diligence away. Are you kidding me? I don't have time for a PBS documentary. That'll take weeks. The hype is happening now. Hype. Just write what their website says. Quote some influencer. Find a few man on the street types in their Discord, and slap a warning at the end about risk. Get it to me in an hour. Eyeballs, people, eyeballs. This is the fatal flaw in the modern media's business model. By prioritizing speed and sensation over depth and verification, they become unwitting accomplices in the hype cycle. The article, despite its baffled tone and flimsy warning, conferred a priceless and entirely unearned air of legitimacy upon Apex Inu. Crypto Chad, the developers, and the entire disciple army immediately weaponized it. They spammed the link everywhere. See? Even the mainstream media is covering us. We're not just a meme, we're a movement. They're finally taking us seriously. The article acted as a powerful bridge, drawing in a whole new class of victims. These were the more cautious people, the ones who were skeptical of influencers, but trusted a familiar news logo. The article laundered the hype, cleaning it of its sketchy influencer-driven origins and presenting it as a legitimate financial news story. It created a devastating feedback loop. The influencer hype drove the price up, The rising price attracted media attention, and the media attention validated the hype and drew in more money, driving the price even higher. The scam was no longer just a niche internet phenomenon. It was starting to look dangerously like the real thing. The mainstream media article had acted like a booster rocket, lifting Apex Inu out of the weird, swampy marshes of the crypto internet and into a much wider orbit. This new altitude, however, came with a different kind of atmospheric pressure. The new wave of potential investors, the ones lured in by a familiar news logo rather than a thirst trap influencer, began to ask more pointed questions. This is great, but who is actually running this project? Where's the team? Can we hear from the people in charge? The calls for transparency were growing louder. The anonymous developers, sensing that their mystique could curdle into suspicion, knew they had to make a move. They needed to perform the high-wire act of seeming open and accessible without revealing a single verifiable fact about themselves. They announced a live community Ask Me Anything session. The hype machine went into overdrive. This was it, the moment of revelation. CryptoChat and the pod framed it as a historic event. The geniuses behind Apex Inu are finally going to speak, they proclaimed. This is your chance to hear the vision directly from the source. The disciple army in the Discord went into a frenzy, counting down the hours. The AMA was scheduled to be live-streamed on Twitch, and the designated moderator for this grand event was, of course, an influencer from the pod, a supposedly neutral party who was, in reality, the project's highest-paid bouncer. When the stream went live, thousands of viewers were greeted not by the faces of visionary tech founders, but by a screen showing two cartoon avatars, the now famous Howling Wolf logo, and another, a wolf in a lab coat, presumably the tech guy. The developers themselves were nothing but disembodied voices, their speech warped by a thick, generic voice modulator that made them both sound like a movie villain placing a ransom call. They introduced themselves only by their pseudonyms, Apex Lead and Dr. Wolf. The stage was set for one of the most masterful performances of saying absolutely nothing in the history of the internet. The moderator started with the softballs, cherry-picking pre-vetted questions from a curated list. Apex Lead, what is the 5-year vision for the project? Apex Lead, in his robotic monotone, would then launch into a 5-minute-long filibuster, weaving together every buzzword from the white paper into a beautiful, intricate tapestry of complete nonsense. He spoke of cross-chain synergy, metaverse integration, and empowering the decentralized generation, all without providing a single concrete detail, deliverable, or deadline. Dr. Wolf would chime in with equally vague, technical-sounding jargon about their proprietary consensus algorithm, which was naturally too complex to explain in this format. For 45 minutes, it was a masterclass in evasion, but occasionally a real question, a dangerous question, would slip through the cracks of the live chat. The setting is the live AMA stream. The influencer moderator is speaking with forced enthusiasm. Influencer moderator. Awesome vision, Apex Lead. Truly next-level stuff. Okay, we've got a great question here from Diamond Hands for Eva. When marketing push? The anonymous devs, robotic voice. That's an excellent question. We believe the strongest marketing is an organic, community-driven groundswell. A skeptical questioner in the live chat manages to get their question seen. Skeptical questioner chat message. Real Talk 88. Can you please share the project's GitHub repository so the community can review the code for your proprietary contract? Influencer moderator. Visibly flustered. Okay. A technical one here from Real Talk. He's asking about the GitHub. A long, awkward silence. The anonymous devs, robotic voice. Thank you for that question. It shows the passion and diligence of our community. Our smart contract code is our core intellectual property. For security reasons and to protect our competitive advantage against imitators, our repository will remain private for the time being. We have been audited by a top-tier industry-leading firm, and the results of that audit will be released at a strategically opportune moment. We ask for your trust. We are focused on building. Skeptical questioner. Chat message. Real Talk 88. Which firm? Can you name the audit firm? The chat message is instantly deleted. The user is banned. Influencer moderator, forcing a laugh. All right, moving on. Next question is from WagMe for Life. This is the theater of fraudulent transparency. The entire event was a charade designed to create the feeling of openness while functioning as a tightly controlled propaganda broadcast. The AMA format, a tool born from a desire for genuine connection between creators and their communities, was hollowed out and used as a weapon of misdirection. The anonymity, which has legitimate roots in the privacy-focused ethos of the early crypto movement, was twisted into a perfect shield for accountability. Trust us, the robot voices demanded, but do not ask us to be trustworthy. For any rational observer, the AMA was a colossal failure, a parade of giant flapping red flags. But for the true believers in the wolf pack, it was a resounding success. Their leaders had spoken. They sounded confident. They used big, smart-sounding words. The dodged questions were not seen as evasiveness, but as a necessary 4D chess strategy to protect their brilliant project. The faith of the disciple army was not shaken. It was forged anew. They now felt a personal connection to the cartoon avatars on the screen. With this final, farcical stamp of legitimacy, the last remaining threads of caution for many were snipped. The project felt real. The leaders felt present. The moon felt closer than ever. The disastrously successful AMA was the final sacrament. The congregation, having now heard the word from their disembodied robotic gods, were filled with the Holy Spirit of pure, unadulterated belief. The last few flimsy barriers of skepticism were washed away in a tidal wave of euphoria. Within the sealed ecosystem of the Apex Inu Discord, a dangerous transformation was completed. The followers were no longer just investors. They had been fully radicalized. They were now pioneers, revolutionaries, digital visionaries who had seen the future while the rest of the world slept. This ideological fervor was crucial because it provided the justification for the madness that was to follow. Inside the echo chamber, the conversation shifted from hopeful speculation to outright financial recklessness, which was now rebranded as courage and conviction. The social dynamics of the group began to actively punish prudence. Anyone advising caution was a weak-willed traitor. Anyone advocating diversification was a fool who didn't understand the magnitude of the opportunity. The only behavior that was celebrated, showered with rocket emojis and laudatory gifts, was going all in. The Dollar General channel became a timeline of increasingly catastrophic life decisions, all presented as heroic acts of faith. A college student posted, "Just sold my student loan disbursement and put it all into Apex Inu. Ramen for the next 4 months, but we're all gonna make it." 1,000 fire emojis rained down in response. Someone else would follow. My wife and I were saving for a down payment on a house. We just decided the housing market is a scam and the real property is in the metaverse. We're officially all in on the wolf pack. To the moon. The community would erupt in cheers. People posted screenshots of maxed out credit cards and personal loans from their banking apps. The funds all destined for a single, anonymous, unregulated crypto asset. This was the point of no return. This was the moment the digital fantasy began to consume real-world futures. It's easy to dismiss this as simple foolishness, but it was a symptom of a perfectly engineered psychological trap. The followers were caught in a vortex of sunk costs, extreme FOMO, and overwhelming social pressure. They had been so thoroughly convinced that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to escape their debts, their dead-end jobs, and their anxieties about the future that the risk of not investing everything felt greater than the risk of losing it all. They weren't just buying a token, they were buying their own salvation. And the high priests of the cult were right there on Twitter, goading them on. Personified dialogue. A man sits in his dimly lit apartment, staring at his online banking portal. His life savings, a trembling, anxious pile of glowing golden coins, sits on his desk. It represents 20 years of careful work and sacrifice. Life savings, in a shaky, pleading voice. Please, don't look at the other screen. Look at me. Remember me? I'm your future. I'm a leaky roof repair. I'm your kid's college education. I am a comfortable, worry-free retirement. We had a plan. On the other screen is a single glowing tweet from CryptoChad. The tweet, personified as a slick, charismatic figure in a sharp suit, leans out of the monitor. CryptoChad's tweet, in a smooth, confident whisper, "A plan? How's that plan working out? A comfortable retirement in 40 years? How about a beachfront mansion in 6 months? He's offering you a slow, boring decay. I'm offering you life. Life savings. I'm safe. I'm real. I'm insured. He's just pixels. Promises. He's a cartoon wolf on the internet." CryptoChad's tweet, "That pathetic pile of rust you call a savings account is losing value to inflation every second you hesitate. It's timid. It's fearful. History is not written by the timid. You don't get a statue for having a sensible 401k. You get one for taking a risk, for being a pioneer." Life savings. Don't listen to him, please. The man, his eyes glazed over with a look of desperate hope, ignores life savings. He slowly, deliberately, pushes the entire shimmering pile of coins towards the glowing screen. The tweet smiles as it consumes them. CryptoChad's tweet, "Generational wealth is just a click away." We have to pause here and acknowledge the quiet tragedy unfolding. Behind the memes and the ridiculous jargon, this is the moment of real human cost. This is not just a story about a funny named internet coin. It's a story about the weaponization of hope. These scams are so effective because they offer a simple, dazzling solution to complex and deeply felt problems. Economic insecurity, the feeling of being left behind, the desire for a life of meaning and freedom. The architects of Apex Inu didn't just sell a token, they sold an escape hatch from a reality that for many feels increasingly precarious. The victims here aren't just faceless, greedy fools. They are our neighbors, our friends, our kids. They are people who have been told their whole lives to work hard and save, only to find that it's often not enough. And along comes a charismatic prophet with a beautiful story of a magic beanstalk that grows to the moon. And for a moment, that story feels more real and more potent than their own lived experience. And so they trade the cow for the beans. With this massive final infusion of real capital from the life savings and credit cards of the fully radicalized, the price of Apex Inu began to detach from reality entirely. The chart, fueled by the hopes and dreams of its believers, stopped climbing. It started to go vertical. With the combined life savings of a digitally radicalized army as its fuel, the Apex Inu rocket ship didn't just climb, it broke the laws of financial physics. The price chart, once a confident upward march, abandoned all pretense of order and went fully, spectacularly parabolic. This is the final, most euphoric stage of a speculative bubble. A parabolic chart is not a line, it's a hook, an exponential curve that grows steeper with each passing hour, a graphical representation of pure, unhinged mass hysteria. The price of Apex Inu was no longer just rising. It was accelerating into infinity. It was doubling, then doubling again in a matter of hours. The market cap soared into the billions. It was a supernova of irrational exuberance. And for the believers, the wolf pack, this was the rapture. This was the promised land. All the faith, all the risk, all the terrifying life-altering decisions were being validated in real time, on a minute-by-minute basis. A generation of paper millionaires was born overnight. The college kid who threw in his student loan money now had a balance that could pay for a decade of tuition. The couple who gambled their house down payment now had enough to buy the entire block. They would refresh their crypto wallets with trembling hands, the number on the screen growing with every pull of their thumb. It was a dopamine rush of unimaginable intensity. It was the feeling of holding a winning lottery ticket while the numbers are still being called, and every single one is a match. On social media, the victory lap was deafening. CryptoChad and his pod were no longer just influencers. They were revered as gods, as modern-day oracles who had delivered their followers to financial salvation. They retweeted the endless stream of testimonials from their newly minted paper millionaires. "Thank you, our CryptoChad. I quit my job today. My parents called me a fool a week ago. I just paid off their mortgage. Wag me." The influencers' posts became smug, dripping with "I told you so" energy. They called us crazy. They said it was a scam. They laughed at us. Who's laughing now? It was an intoxicating narrative, and it had a powerful corrosive effect on the last remaining holdouts, the skeptics, even the most rational, level-headed critics who had been screaming scam. From day one began to suffer a crisis of faith. Their logic, their research, their common sense. It all seemed utterly useless in the face of the screaming, undeniable reality of the parabolic price chart. Every fiber of their being told them this was a house of cards, but the house was now scraping the clouds. The fear of being wrong was slowly, painfully eclipsed by the much greater fear of missing out on the single biggest financial event of their lives. This final wave of capitulation is a classic sign of a market top. The last pockets of resistance crumble, and everyone, believer and former skeptic alike, is finally on the same doomed side of the trade. Personified dialogue. A skeptic, a lone figure of rationality who has been watching the Apex Inu saga with scorn, is pacing in his room, arguing with himself. The skeptic. It's a fraud. It has to be. The team is anonymous. There is no product. The value is based on literally nothing but memes and hype. It defies all laws of finance and economics. It will go to zero. I know it will. Suddenly, the parabolic price chart bursts through the wall. It is not a chart. It is a living entity. A deafening vertical pillar of pure green light screaming with the force of 1,000 rocket engines. The parabolic price chart, laws, economics. Your pathetic human logic is obsolete. I am the only law. I am up 30,000%. The skeptic. But it's not real. It's not sustainable. It's a collective delusion. The parabolic price chart. Your paycheck is real. Your debt is real. Your boring, mediocre life is real. I am the escape. Everyone who believed in me is a millionaire right now. They are shopping for yachts. What is your logic getting you? The satisfaction of being correct and poor? The skeptic. I can't. It's insane. The parabolic price chart. Insanity is the new sanity. Look at me. I am wealth. I am victory. I am truth. The only thing insane is not owning me. Buy me. Buy me and be vindicated. Buy me before you are left behind forever. The skeptic, sweating and trembling, finally gives in. He opens his laptop and clicks buy, surrendering his reason to the overwhelming, irrational force of the parabola. There's an old saying on Wall Street: the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. The Apex Inu parabola was this adage brought to life in spectacular, terrifying fashion. The price was no longer connected to any conceivable reality. It was a pure, abstract expression of human greed and mob psychology. This was the moment of maximum danger, the giddy, breathless peak right before the drop. Everyone involved felt like a certified genius. The early believers were confirming their brilliance. The new converts, including the former skeptics, felt relief that they had gotten in just in time. The influencers were taking their victory laps, and somewhere in the shadows, the anonymous developers and the original insider circle, the only people who knew this was all a grand illusion, watched the frenzy reach its absolute zenith. Their fingers, silent and steady, moved towards a single, simple button. The button that read, "Sell." The summit was reached. The air was thin and giddy. On the screens of thousands of believers, the Apex Inu chart stood like a monument to their collective genius, a sheer green cliff face of impossible profit. The Discord was a volcanic eruption of celebration. People were posting plans for their new lives, sharing screenshots of their multi-million-dollar paper fortunes, and worshiping the avatars of their influencer profits. In this single, shining moment, every promise had been fulfilled. Everyone was a winner. Everyone was going to make it. It was the beautiful, perfect, crystalline peak of the lie. And it was the exact moment the architects of that lie chose to detonate it. There was no public announcement. There was no warning. There was only a silent, secret signal sent across an encrypted channel that connected a handful of people across the globe. It might have been a single word. Now. In a luxury apartment in Dubai, Crypto Chad Maverick saw the signal. In a minimalist condo in Miami, technical analysis Tiffany saw it. In a suburban home office, fundamentalist Frank saw it. And in the anonymous digital garages where the whole thing was born, the developers saw it. Simultaneously, with the cold, dispassionate precision of a firing squad, They all opened their crypto wallets. Inside those wallets lay the treasure, trillions upon trillions of Apex Inu tokens. Tokens they had created from nothing, tokens they had been gifted, tokens they had bought for a price so close to zero it was functionally free. This was their harvest. For weeks they had been the farmers, carefully planting the seeds of hype, watering them with bots, and tending to the crop of retail investors. Now the crop was ripe, and it was time to bring in the scythe. Each of them performed the same simple, brutal action. They went to the decentralized exchange where Apex Inu was traded. They clicked swap. They selected max amount of Apex Inu. And for the currency to receive, they chose a stable, boring, real-world value asset like Ethereum or a stablecoin like USDC. They were cashing in their mountain of useless, meme-branded tokens for all the real money their followers had poured into the project. The decentralized exchange works on a simple principle of a liquidity pool, a big pot of money that traders use to swap between assets. For weeks, thousands of hopeful investors had been throwing their very real Ethereum and Binance coin into this pool in exchange for Apex Inu. The pool was now brimming, swollen with hundreds of millions of dollars of their collective hopes and dreams. And in a single, coordinated, catastrophic moment, the insiders hit confirm transaction. They weren't just selling, they were pulling the plug. They were draining the entire pool. Personified dialogue. The Apex Inu liquidity pool is personified as a beautiful, sparkling, sun-drenched infinity pool. It is filled to the brim with the crystal clear water of real investor money. It hums contentedly. The Apex Inu liquidity pool. Ah, what a glorious day. So full, so liquid. Look at all the happy swimmers, splashing around with their dreams of 1000x returns. The market is so healthy. The volume is so high. Life is good. From the deep, dark depths beneath the pool, something stirs. The coordinated sell order, a monstrous, shadowy kraken with dozens of tentacles, awakens. Its eyes glow with the cold light of the insiders' wallets. The Apex Inu liquidity pool. Did anyone else feel a tremor? Probably just more buy pressure, nothing to worry about. The water's fine. Without a word, the kraken lunges upwards. Its enormous gaping maw opens directly beneath the pool. In a single, silent, world-ending gulp, it inhales everything. The hundreds of millions of dollars of pristine, clear water vanish in less than a second. A wet slurping sound echoes as the beast disappears back into the depths, its belly full. The Apex Inu liquidity pool. Now just a muddy, empty crater with a few small, worthless Apex Inu tokens flopping around like dying fish. Where did everyone go? This is the rug pull. It is not a market downturn. It is not a correction. It is a premeditated act of grand larceny, executed with cryptographic precision. The tsunami of sell orders that hit the market in that single second was beyond anything the system could absorb. The supply of Apex Inu for sale instantly outnumbered the demand by a factor of infinity. For every one person trying to buy, there were suddenly trillions of tokens being dumped for sale by the very people who had promised their followers diamond hands. The entire enterprise, from the first influencer post to the final parabolic spike, was nothing but an elaborate mechanism to accomplish this single act. To gather the real money of thousands of people into one big digital pot, and then in one coordinated move, steal it all. The community, the technology, the revolution, it was all just bait. The trap, which had been so carefully and patiently set for weeks, had just been sprung with silent, merciless efficiency. And on the screens of thousands of newly minted paper millionaires, the beautiful green monument on their price chart was about to transform into a waterfall of blood-red devastation. The insider's betrayal was a silent, cryptographic event that took place in the cold, unfeeling world of code. But its consequence, which arrived a single heartbeat later, was a very loud, very human, and very visceral scream of collective horror. For the thousands of believers staring at their screens, the world ended not with a bang, but with a single, vertical, blood-red candle. The price chart, that proud green monument to their impending wealth, was instantly and violently replaced by a catastrophic red waterfall. One moment, the price of Apex Inu was at its all-time high. The next, it was down 50%. A second later, 80%, then 95%, then 99%, then 99.9%. The numbers, which had been a source of pure dopamine just moments before, were now ticking down so fast it was like watching a slot machine spin in reverse, sucking the winnings back out. The billion-dollar market cap evaporated into thin air. The paper millions, the dreams of Lamborghinis and paid-off mortgages, all vanished in a puff of digital smoke. It was the graphical equivalent of a skyscraper being dynamited at its base and collapsing into a pile of dust in under 10 seconds. The euphoria in the Discord server did not fade. It shattered. It was replaced by a sonic boom of pure, unadulterated panic. The first messages were of disbelief. WTF was that? Some whale just sold, right? It'll bounce back. Buy the dip, guys, diamond hands. But the dip kept dipping. It wasn't a dip, it was a grave. The disbelief curdled into sickening dread, and then into frantic animal panic. The great digital bank run had begun. Everyone, all at once, had the same thought. Get out now. They scrambled to the decentralized exchange, the same one they had used to pour their life savings in, and now tried to reverse the transaction. They tried to sell their Apex Inu bags, now shrinking in value with every passing millisecond, to salvage whatever they could. $1,000, $100, anything. But this is where they discovered the final, most cruel feature of the trap. The exit was gone. When they tried to sell, their transactions would fail, or they would be met with a horrifying price impact too high warning. The insiders hadn't just sold their tokens, they had drained the liquidity pool. They had sucked all the real money out, leaving behind an empty husk. There was nothing to sell for. The believers were all standing in a burning building, rushing for the emergency exit, only to find that the door had been bricked over from the outside. They were trapped. They were holding millions, billions, trillions of a token that now had a price of virtually zero, and more importantly, a tradable value of actually zero. The digital lights had been turned off, and their money was gone. Personified dialogue. A panicked believer is on their computer, frantically clicking, their hands are shaking, they are yelling at the screen. Panicked believer. Sell. Just sell. I put in $20,000. It was worth $500,000 5 minutes ago. I'll take 10,000, I'll take 5, I'll take anything. Just let me out. The sell button on the exchange website begins to flicker and speak in a glitchy, mocking, robotic voice. The sell button. Sell command accepted. Processing your request to swap 500 billion Apex Inu tokens. Searching for matching buy orders. 1 moment, please. Searching. Panicked believer. Come on, come on, come on. The sell button. Search complete. I have found a matching buy order for 0.201% of your requested amount. Would you like to proceed with selling 12 of your tokens in exchange for 137? Panicked believer. No, sell it all. Why can't you sell it all? The sell button. Insufficient liquidity. The entity you are attempting to trade with appears to be an empty void. There is no money here. The bank is closed. The vault is empty. All the tellers have mysteriously moved to a non-extradition country. Suggestion. Have you tried turning your monitor off and on again? It will not bring your money back, but it is a classic troubleshooting step. This is the brutal lesson of the rug pull, the final bloody punchline to the joke. The number on the screen, the price of the asset, is a complete illusion if there is no liquidity. Paper wealth is not wealth. It is a promise. And that promise had just been spectacularly and intentionally broken. The believers thought they were playing a fair game, that their newfound riches were as real as the money in their bank accounts. They failed to understand that in the unregulated chaos of decentralized finance, you are not a customer in a bank. You are a cowboy in a lawless frontier town, and the charming stranger who just bought the whole saloon a round of drinks has just run out the back with your horse, your wallet, and the town's entire gold reserve. The catastrophic red waterfall on the chart finally came to rest, flatlining at a price so close to zero that it required scientific notation to display. The bank run was over because the bank had ceased to exist. The Discord, once a vibrant hub of utopian dreams, was now a digital wasteland of sorrow and rage. The life savings were gone. The student loans were gone. The down payments were gone. All that remained were the worthless tokens and the sickening, crushing realization of betrayal. The digital bank was empty. The life savings were gone. The price chart of Apex Inu was a flat line, a tombstone marking the grave of a billion-dollar fantasy. In the smoldering ruins of the Discord server, the initial shock and panic of the victims began to curdle into a single unifying emotion: rage. And that rage had a target. Thousands of betrayed believers, now clutching worthless bags of a dead token, turned their attention to the prophets who had led them into this wasteland. The social media accounts of Crypto Chad, Technical Analysis Tiffany, and the entire influencer pod were bombarded by a tidal wave of desperate, furious messages. "A Crypto Chad, you told us to hodl. Where did the liquidity go? I put my son's college fund in this, please tell me what to do. You scammer, you did this to us." For the first few agonizing hours, the response from the gurus was a deafening, coordinated silence. They had, by some incredible coincidence, all decided to take a social media break at the exact moment their signature investment imploded. This silence was a tactic. It allowed the chaos to peak, the panic to exhaust itself. It let the victims scream into a void. Then, just as the rage was solidifying, the high priest returned. But he did not come bearing apologies or explanations. He came bearing sunshine, condescension, and a masterclass in psychological warfare. Crypto Chad's first public statement was not a tweet, not a press release, but a casual Instagram story. The video was shot selfie style, the camera held slightly high to get a flattering angle. He was on a beach. A pristine white sand beach with turquoise water gently lapping at the shore behind him. He was wearing expensive-looking sunglasses, and a faint, serene smile played on his lips. He looked relaxed, unbothered, and, most importantly, rich. He let the camera linger on the idyllic scene for a moment before he began to speak, his tone calm and slightly chiding, like a patient father disappointed in his panicky children. "Hey, Wolfpack," he began, a gentle sea breeze rustling his perfectly coiffed hair. "Wow, waking up to a lot of very emotional DMs this morning. First of all, everyone just needs to take a deep breath. Zoom out. What we're seeing here is a perfectly normal and honestly very healthy market correction." He paused, letting the sheer audacity of the statement hang in the air. "The market is shaking out the paper hands right now. This is a stress test. And only the true diamond hands, the real long-term believers, are going to pass. I've been saying from day one, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme, it's a long-term revolutionary project. If you panicked and sold the bottom, I'm sorry, but that's a failure of your own mindset, not a failure of the project." He finished with the ultimate act of toxic positivity. "Personally, I'm not worried. In fact, I'm using this as a buying opportunity. This is where the real wealth is made. Stay strong. Wag me." And then the story ended, replaced by a picture of his brunch. The collective scream of the victims, a chaotic, multi-voiced roar of pain and anger, echoes through the digital void. The collective scream: "You lied. You stole from us. Our lives are ruined. Where is the money? We trusted you. Answer us." Crypto Chad's Instagram story materializes. It is not a person, but a serene, smiling, sun-drenched projection. It floats calmly amidst the chaos, its voice a soothing, manipulative hum. Crypto Chad's Instagram story. Shh, listen to yourselves. So much emotion, so much fear. Do you know what the number one enemy of wealth is? Emotion. You are letting your feelings dictate your financial reality. That is a poor person's mindset. The collective scream, but the chart went to zero. We lost everything. Crypto Chad's Instagram story. You have not lost anything unless you sold. Did you sell? Oh, that's a shame. You have what we call paper hands. You see this 99.9% drop not as a catastrophic failure, but as a lesson, a discount, a clearance sale on the future. This is a test of your faith, and it appears many of you have failed. I haven't. I'm still calm. I'm still rich. Perhaps the problem isn't the asset. Perhaps the problem is you. This is gaslighting, pure and simple. It is a form of psychological manipulation designed to make the victim question their own sanity and perception of reality. Calling a 99.9% rug pull a healthy correction is the financial equivalent of telling someone you did not steal their car, you simply relocated it to a long-term off-site storage facility for its own protection. It's an attempt to overwrite their reality with his own fraudulent narrative. And it is a brutally effective tactic. It deflects all blame from him and places it squarely on the shoulders of the victims. Their loss wasn't his fault. It was their fault for being too emotional, too weak, too paper-handed. This single, calm, condescending Instagram story was a strategic masterstroke. It was designed to split the victim community. And it worked. While many saw it for the sociopathic lie it was, a desperate, hope-addicted contingent of his followers clung to his every word. The Discord, which had been a pit of uniform despair, now became a fractured battleground. He's right, guys. We just have to hold on. Stop spreading FUD. The real diamond hands are buying this dip. He's on a beach. He's not worried. Why are we? While the victims were busy arguing with each other, their faith and anger warring in a confusing civil war, Crypto Chad and his pod were quietly moving on to the next, most important phase of the plan, covering their tracks. While the victims of the Apex Inu collapse were busy turning on each other in the digital ruins of the Discord server, a quiet, methodical, and far more sinister operation was underway. The influencers, having successfully deployed their gaslighting campaign to create a smokescreen of confusion, now turned to the urgent task of evidence disposal. Their social media timelines were a digital crime scene, a weeks-long, highly publicized record of their complicity in a multi-million-dollar fraud. Every boastful tweet, every hyped-up video, every diamond hands promise was a ticking time bomb, a potential exhibit in a future class action lawsuit. The digital disappearing act had begun. This was not a panicked, messy purge. It was a professional cleansing, executed with the same calculated precision as the rug pull itself. They couldn't simply nuke their entire accounts. That would be an admission of guilt. The goal was to rewrite history, not erase it entirely. The process began subtly, like a thief in the night. A few of the most damning, most specific, and most legally actionable posts were the first to go. A victim, now in the anger and bargaining stage of grief, might remember a specific tweet from Technical Analysis Tiffany, the one from the day before the crash where she posted a chart with a giant green arrow pointing to the sky and the text, "The final shakeout is over. Next stop, Mars. Yes, NFA." They'd go to her timeline to find it, to screenshot it, to prove to themselves and others that they weren't crazy. They'd scroll back to the date, and it would simply not be there. They'd refresh the page. Still gone. They'd search her username and the keyword Mars. 0 results. It was a strange, unsettling feeling, a form of secondary gaslighting. Am I misremembering? Did I dream that post? Then they go looking for that Instagram reel from Crypto Chad, the one where he was on a boat laughing and said with absolute conviction, "I am never selling a single Apex Inu token. This is my forever bag. We are building a 10-year vision here." They'd go to his Reels tab, and it would be gone, vanished, as if it had never existed. It was a digital memory holing, a systematic erasure of the recent past, happening in real time. The influencers were silently, meticulously snipping out the most incriminating threads of their own narrative, hoping no one would notice the holes they left behind. A betrayed follower, now a determined digital detective, is hunched over their laptop, sifting through Crypto Chad's Twitter feed. Betrayed follower. Okay, I know I saw it. It was Monday. He replied to a user who was scared and he said, "Don't worry, the dev team is the best in the business and this project is unruggable. I need to find that. It's the smoking gun." Unseen by the follower, a tiny shadowy figure, the delete tweet button, materializes on the screen next to the tweet in question. It's a silent, efficient ninja. The delete tweet button, whispering to itself. Order received from client a Crypto Chad. Target ID, 1F9385. Content classified as excessively promissory. Commencing silent purge protocol. The ninja performs a swift, silent sword strike. Shink, the tweet vanishes from the timeline. Betrayed follower, scrolling past the spot where the tweet used to be. Wait, what? Was it on Tuesday? Let me check again. I swear to God he said unruggable. Am I losing my mind? The delete tweet button, now hovering over another tweet. New target acquired. Target ID, 159,402. Content, buy this dip or cry later. Classification, definitely financial advice. Engaging erasure. Shink, betrayed follower. This is impossible. His whole timeline from last week seems lighter, less specific. Where did all the hype go? It feels like I'm scrolling through a ghost's memories. This is the profound and terrifying power of curated digital identity. We instinctively think of the internet as a permanent, indelible record, but for the author, a social media feed is a fluid, editable reality. The influencers were engaged in a form of active, real-time historical revisionism. They were sanitizing their past, scrubbing the blood from their digital hands, and constructing a new, cleaner timeline where their involvement in the Apex Inu disaster was merely a passing mention, not a central driving role. This disappearing act is designed to dismantle the case against them, not just legally but in the court of public opinion. In a few weeks, they could point to their scrubbed timelines and say, I only mentioned it once or twice. I was just as surprised as everyone else. But the internet's memory is longer than a single person's timeline. As the most blatant posts began to vanish, the most astute of the victims realized what was happening. A new kind of panic set in, the frantic race to preserve the evidence. A guerrilla war of screenshots began. People started frantically archiving everything that was left. New anonymous watchdog accounts popped up on Twitter, their sole purpose to repost the deleted tweets and videos that others had managed to save. The digital janitors, realizing their stealthy approach had been compromised, knew they had to escalate. The quiet, selective pruning was about to become a scorched earth campaign. It wasn't just their own posts that needed to disappear. It was the project itself. The guerrilla war of screenshots was a valiant effort by the betrayed, a desperate scramble to preserve the digital crime scene. But the influencers and their anonymous developer partners knew that as long as the project itself had a public face, they remained vulnerable. Deleting their own tweets was like wiping fingerprints from a murder weapon, a necessary step, but it was far more effective to simply incinerate the entire building where the crime took place. While the victims were busy archiving old posts, the masterminds of the scam were preparing for the final, grand act of erasure. They were about to delete Apex Inu from existence. The project's official website, Apex Inu Finance, had been the digital Jerusalem for the wolf pack. It was a slick, professionally designed hub of hope, dripping with aspirational branding. It hosted the sacred texts, the glorious 25-page Word, salad white paper. It displayed the roadmap, a beautiful and entirely fictional timeline of upcoming triumphs, like NFT marketplace launch and metaverse integration. It was the anchor of the scam's legitimacy, the first place a curious newcomer would visit to verify that this was, in fact, a real project. And one morning, without a word of warning, it was gone. Users who tried to visit the website were no longer greeted by the howling wolf and promises of a decentralized utopia. They were met with the internet's coldest, most indifferent tombstone, 404 not found. The server could not be reached. The domain name, which just days before had been the portal to a billion-dollar enterprise, now pointed to an empty black void. It was the digital equivalent of showing up to your company's gleaming headquarters to find nothing but a crater and a faint smell of smoke. This was not a server crash. This was a demolition. The white paper, that foundational document of lies, was now a dead link, accessible only to those who had the foresight to save a local copy. The roadmap, with all its empty promises, vanished into the ether. And the purge was not limited to the website. The official Apex Inu Twitter account, with its tens of thousands of followers, many of them bots, was deactivated. Poof. Gone. The massive Discord server, the digital homeland of the community, the place where thousands of people had been radicalized, was summarily deleted by its anonymous owner. In a single silent keystroke, years of chat logs, thousands of incriminating announcements from the devs, and all evidence of the frothing, cult-like hype chamber were wiped clean. It was a digital book burning of catastrophic proportions. Personified dialogue. The Apexinu website is on a brightly lit digital stage, personified as a hyperactive, fast-talking game show host in a gaudy suit. The Apexinu website. Welcome back, future multimillionaires, to the investment of a lifetime. Take a look at our roadmap. Phase 3, an NFT platform. Phase 4, a trip to the literal moon. And let's not forget our white paper. 25 pages of pure, unadulterated genius. We've got synergy, we've got blockchain, we've got a community that, behind the website, a tall, silent, faceless figure materializes. It is a humanoid shape made of pure blackness, with the numbers 404 glowing faintly on its chest. This is the concept of 404 not found. The Apexinu website, voice starting to glitch and distort. A community that is the strongest in all of Crypto 2. Our parabolic trajectory is assured. The 404 figure places a single, silent hand on the website's shoulder. The website doesn't scream. It simply pixelates, dissolving into a cloud of static and dust, its voice fading into a final, pathetic dial-up modem squeal before vanishing completely. The stage is now empty and black. The concept of 404 not found. Silence. This is the terrifying ephemerality of the digital age. A decade ago, a scam of this magnitude would have left a mountain of physical evidence, rented office spaces, incorporation documents, paper trails. But Apexinu was a ghost company from the start. It existed only as a collection of pixels and code on a handful of servers. Its destruction, therefore, could be just as clean and total. The scammers were performing the ultimate act of gaslighting. They were trying to convince the world and even their victims that the entire phenomenon had been a collective hallucination. What Apexinu? They could now claim. Never heard of it. There's no website, there's no Twitter. You must be mistaken. It creates a profound sense of unreality for the victims. They are left holding a worthless asset in their digital wallets, an asset that is now a ghost with no homepage, no community, and no developers to appeal to. They are truly, utterly alone. All the public-facing infrastructure of the scam had been scuttled and sunk to the bottom of the digital ocean. Now, with the crime scene itself having been vaporized, the individual criminals, the influencers, could proceed with their own final personal cleanup. They had to erase any evidence that they had ever even been on the ship in the first place. The mothership was gone. The Apexinu website, the Discord, the Twitter account, all scuttled and sunk to the digital seabed, leaving no wreckage. For Crypto Chad and his cabal of influencers, this was the green light. The time for quiet, selective pruning was over. The crime scene itself had been vaporized, which meant it was now time to burn their own blood-soaked clothes. With the project officially a ghost, any remaining mention of it on their feeds was no longer just incriminating evidence. It was an embarrassing, low-class relic, a testament to a business deal that was now concluded. The mass deletion protocol was initiated. This was not a man with a shovel. This was a team of bulldozers operating under the cover of night. The influencers deployed third-party social media management tools, the same ones they used to schedule their motivational posts, and turned them to a more sinister purpose. They could now search their entire post history, every tweet and reply they had ever made for keywords. A search for Apexinu, a search for the hashtag Apex, a search for Wolfpack. They selected all the results, hundreds of posts for each influencer, and with a single chilling click they executed the command, delete all. On Twitter, entire weeks of their timelines evaporated in minutes. The breathless all-caps tweets promising a face-melting rally vanished. The confident retweets of the now-defunct official Apexinu account were gone. The replies where they argued with skeptics and called them poor were scrubbed clean. On Instagram, the purge was just as ruthless. The celebratory reels of them dancing to a trending song with text overlay reading, "When you 10x your portfolio on a single trade," were deleted. The carefully posed pictures of them looking at a crypto chart on their laptop, with the Apex Inu logo clearly visible, were archived into oblivion. Even the group photos from that one crypto conference in Miami, where the whole pod had met up, were quietly removed, lest they establish a public link between the conspirators. Their YouTube channels were a bloodbath. The hours-long AMA with the Apex Inu devs that they had hosted? Deleted. The 15-minute deep dive where they broke down the revolutionary tokenomics? Deleted. The clickbait videos with titles like, "This coin will make you a millionaire," "Urgent," were all set to private or wiped from the platform entirely. It was a systematic, top-to-bottom scorched earth campaign to erase a full chapter of their public lives. The goal was to create a clean, seamless, and entirely fraudulent continuity in their personal brand narrative. In a week, a new follower would be able to scroll through their feeds and find no evidence that they had ever been the chief evangelists for a catastrophic financial implosion. Personified dialogue. We are in a pristine, white, minimalist art gallery. This is CryptoChad's social media feed. Every post is a perfectly framed piece of art celebrating his success. Suddenly, the ghost of Apex Inu, a glitchy, spectral figure made of rocket emojis and broken promises, appears rattling its chains. The ghost of Apex Inu, wailing. You told them diamond hands forever. You promised them the moon. I am your creation. You cannot erase me. CryptoChad, the gallery's curator, walks in. He is dressed in a sharp, clean suit and is holding a futuristic-looking device that hums with energy, a digital blowtorch. CryptoChad as curator. Sighs, not even looking at the ghost. This gallery requires a certain aesthetic, a consistent narrative of success. This apparition clashes with the decor. Time for a little recuration. The ghost of Apex Inu. No, the screenshots, the archives. People remember. They know what you did. CryptoChad as curator. A cold smile. People's memories are messy, unreliable. But the feed is clean. The feed is whatever I say it is. He aims the digital blowtorch at the ghost. The ghost screams as it's consumed by a cleansing fire of pure data deletion, its wails of unruggable and wagmai fading into nothingness. CryptoChad dusts off his hands. The gallery is pristine once more. CryptoChad as curator. Perfect. Now what to post tomorrow? I'm feeling something motivational. This mass deletion protocol is perhaps the most profound betrayal of all. The entire business model of an influencer is built upon a carefully constructed illusion of authenticity. They sell a parasocial relationship, the idea that they are sharing their genuine journey with their followers. This act of systematic self-serving censorship shatters that illusion. It is a violent admission that the journey is a lie. The feed is not a diary, it is a billboard. And when an ad campaign is over, you take the billboard down. For the victims, this was a unique and dizzying form of torment. It wasn't just that they had lost their money. It wasn't just that their leaders were gaslighting them. It was that their trusted mentors were now actively trying to erase any evidence that their relationship had ever existed. It was the ultimate ghosting. The digital record of their shared experience was being incinerated before their eyes, and it served as the final brutal confirmation that they were never part of a community or a pack. They were just the exit liquidity. And now that the exit had been used, the door was being welded shut and painted over. The digital bonfires had consumed the evidence. The influencers' timelines, once a raging testament to the Apex Inu hype, were now serene, pristine, and utterly fraudulent. The project itself was a ghost, its website a 404 error, and its community a deleted server. But one final messy loose end remained. The victims. They were still there. Wounded, furious, and armed with functioning keyboards, they represented the last pocket of resistance, the last audible echo of the truth. With nowhere else to go, they took to the last remaining public square, the comment section of their former prophets. CryptoChad, in a move of breathtaking audacity, did not go into hiding. The day after the mass deletion, he posted a new, completely unrelated Instagram reel. It was him, at the gym, lifting an unreasonable amount of weight, set to a trending motivational audio clip. The caption read, Adversity is a gift. It's the universe's way of seeing if you're worthy of the success that's coming. Never give up. The other influencers in the pod followed suit, resuming their normal programming of vapid quotes and lifestyle porn, as if absolutely nothing had happened. It was the final, defiant act of gaslighting. And the victims, predictably, descended. The comments on Crypto Chad's new gym post were a war zone. "How dare you post this?" one would read. "You stole my family's savings and you're talking about adversity." Another would scream, "Thief, scammer. We have the screenshots. You will not get away with this." For every 10 fawning comments from his oblivious or still deluded followers, there was one raw, bleeding cry of betrayal. This, for the influencers, was an unacceptable breach of their carefully curated reality. The noise had to be silenced. What followed was not a dialogue, not an apology, not an explanation, but a great and terrible silencing. Armed with the most powerful and tyrannical tool on social media, the influencers and their social media managers unleashed the block hammer. The protocol was simple and brutal. Any comment that mentioned Apex Inu was to be deleted. The user who posted it was to be immediately and permanently blocked. Any DMs containing questions or accusations were to be deleted without being opened, the sender blocked. On platforms like Instagram, they implemented comment filters, creating a digital dragnet that would automatically hide any comment containing keywords like scam, rug pull, stole, money, or Apex Inu. The result was a pristine Potemkin village of a comments section. To any outsider, it appeared that Crypto Chad's reputation was untouched. His posts were flooded with 1,000 comments of pure adoration. "King, so inspiring. You're the reason I get up in the morning." All the anger, all the pain, all the accusations from the people whose lives he had just financially ruined were rendered invisible. They were screaming, but they were screaming into a soundproof room. Personified dialogue. Underneath Crypto Chad's new breezy post about his morning routine, a victim's comment, a furious ghostly apparition, tries to write its message on the wall for all to see. A victim's comment, screaming as it types, "He stole from us. Apex Inu was a scam. Don't trust him. I lost everything because..." Bonk. A giant cartoonish hammer, the block hammer, swings down from the top of the screen and smashes the comment into pixels before it can even finish. The block hammer, in a deep, final monotone voice, "User blocked." Another victim's comment appears. A victim's comment number 2. "Thief. My husband left me because of the money I lost listening to you. You've ruined my life. Bonk." The block hammer, "User blocked." A third, more desperate comment. A victim's comment number 3. "Please just tell us why. Was any of it real? Please." Bonk. The block hammer, "User blocked." Next. The block button is the ultimate tool of the modern charlatan. It allows for the creation of a perfect, impenetrable reality bubble. In a pre-internet age, a public figure who committed a great wrong would be forced to face the consequences in the public square. They would be heckled, questioned, and held to account by their community. Today they can simply construct their own private public square, one in which every citizen is a paid actor, and any dissenting voice is digitally exiled to a distant, silent land. It is the ultimate abdication of accountability. This great silencing was the final act of violence against the victims. First, their money was stolen. Then, their reality was denied. Then the evidence of the crime was erased. And now, their very voices were being silenced. They were being digitally disappeared, their pleas for help and warnings to others systematically scrubbed from the record, ensuring that their prophet could continue his grift, his reputation miraculously intact, his feed, scrubbed clean, ready for the next cycle, the next project, the next wave of unsuspecting followers. The house was now clean. The ghosts had been exorcised. The only remaining question was whether the landlord of the house, the social media platforms themselves, would have anything to say about the massacre that had just occurred within their walls. The influencers' digital fortress was complete. Their timelines were scrubbed, their pasts rewritten, and their victims silenced by the thousands. They had successfully contained the fallout within their own curated bubbles. But the stench of a 9-figure financial implosion is hard to contain. The sheer volume of user reports, the articles from the few crypto-native news sites that bothered to cover the collapse, and the coordinated screaming from watchdog accounts on Twitter created a problem that could not be solved with a block button. The noise finally grew loud enough to stir the sleeping giants. The platforms themselves, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the landlords of the entire digital slum where the crime had taken place, were finally forced to open one eye and acknowledge the situation. The public outcry, at least in the niche corners of the internet that cared, demanded action. How could you let this happen on your platform? Are you going to deplatform these scammers? What are you doing to protect your users? After a week of mounting pressure and a few pointed inquiries from tech journalists, the official response finally came. It arrived not as a swift and decisive hammer of justice, but as a lukewarm lawyer-approved, perfectly formatted corporate statement posted simultaneously to the safety blog of each platform. The statement was a masterclass in saying absolutely nothing. It was a 200-word sedative designed to placate the angry, bore the journalists, and above all admit zero liability. It began, "We are aware of recent reports regarding a cryptocurrency project and promotional activity on our platform. Note the magnificent vagueness. It did not name Apex Inu. It did not name Crypto Chad. It was the corporate equivalent of saying, 'We heard a loud noise may have occurred in this general vicinity.'" The statement continued, "Protecting the integrity of the conversation on our platform is our top priority. We are actively investigating this matter for any violations of our policies on financial scams and coordinated inauthentic behavior." Then came the action. The platforms announced they had taken action against a network of accounts for violating their spam policies. This meant a few hundred of the most obvious bot accounts from the army they had purchased were suspended, a slap on the wrist so light it was more of a gentle caress. As for the influencers, Crypto Chad received a 24-hour suspension from Twitter for violating community guidelines. That was it. 1 day in digital jail for orchestrating a multi-million-dollar fraud. The statement concluded with a solemn promise to continue to review and evolve our policies to keep our community safe. The case, as far as they were concerned, was closed. Personified dialogue. A tech journalist is at a sterile white press conference, questioning a towering, impeccably dressed, but faceless corporate monolith labeled Big Tech Platform. Journalist. A 9-figure financial fraud was just facilitated from start to finish using your services. Your algorithm amplified the perpetrators. Your platform hosted the propaganda. What is your actual response? Big Tech Platform. In a smooth, calming, synthesized voice. Thank you for your question. We are deeply committed to user safety. We have a robust, multi-layered policy framework to address such eventualities. Upon being made aware of the situation, we initiated a thorough internal review. A tiny, frantic man in a rumpled suit, the user agreement, scurries up next to the monolith, holding up a document the size of a phone book. The user agreement. And I'd just like to add that per Section 84, Subclause 12, Paragraph C, we are a platform, not a publisher, and bear no legal responsibility for financial losses incurred by users due to interactions with third-party content. All users agreed to this. It's on page 97. Journalist. But people's lives were ruined. Are there no consequences for the influencers who used your platform as a weapon? Big Tech Platform. We have taken appropriate enforcement actions consistent with our stated guidelines. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go. Our Q4 earnings call is about to start, and our daily active user engagement metrics during the period in question were absolutely fantastic. A truly vibrant and passionate quarter for user interaction. Why was the response so toothless, so utterly pathetic? The answer lies in a simple, brutal business calculation. These platforms did not just host the scam, they profited from it. The Apex Inu hype cycle was an engagement goldmine. Every like, every angry comment, every retweet, every desperate refresh of the page was a moment a user was on their app, looking at their ads, generating revenue for them. CryptoChad and his pod, with their millions of highly engaged followers, are not liabilities to be removed. They are incredibly valuable unpaid content creators who keep the engagement engine churning. Banning them would be like a casino kicking out its biggest whale. It's simply bad for business. So the platforms perform the necessary ritual. They issue the statement. They make a few token sacrifices to the gods of public relations. They promise to do better. But they change nothing fundamental about the system because the system is working exactly as designed. The model is built to reward sensationalism, hype, and emotional contagion, and financial scams are simply the most profitable, weaponized form of those very things. The investigation was never an investigation. It was a public relations maneuver. And with that maneuver now successfully completed, the platforms could go back to counting their money. The brief storm having passed, CryptoChad served his 24-hour sentence, and the path was now clear for him to return to his flock, not as a disgraced fraudster, but as a martyr. The platforms had spoken, or rather, they had mumbled a few legally vetted platitudes and then looked the other way. The investigation was over. CryptoChad's 24-hour timeout in the digital corner was served. For the architects of the Apex Inu disaster, the brief, inconvenient period of public scrutiny had passed. It was time to get back to business. A week after the crash, after the mass deletions, after the great silencing, CryptoChad returned to the internet. And he returned not with humility or remorse, but with a fresh haircut and a crown of thorns. He did not come back apologizing. He came back swinging. His grand reappearance was a masterfully crafted performance of martyrdom. His first post was a high-resolution photo of him standing on a mountain at sunrise, staring pensively into the distance. The caption was a work of art. In the last week, I've experienced the biggest storm of my life, it read. When you challenge the system fights back. They tried to silence me. They tried to deplatform me. They want you to stay in the cage they've built for you. But this experience hasn't broken me. It has forged me. The mission is now clearer than ever. In an instant, he had reframed the entire narrative. He was not a scammer who had just facilitated a massive fraud. He was a revolutionary leader who had been attacked by the establishment. His 24-hour suspension wasn't a punishment. It was a battle scar for the hardcore remnant of his followers, the ones who had held on through the crash, who were so deep in the red that their only hope was a second miracle. This was exactly what they needed to hear. Their losses were not their fault, nor were they CryptoChad's. They were casualties in a noble war against the shadowy forces of legacy finance. With his credibility restored among the faithful, he began the pivot. His timeline, now sparkling clean and scrubbed of any mention of dog-themed tokens, began to adopt a new, more mature vocabulary. The tone shifted from manic hype to one of sober, hard-won wisdom. The meme coin casino phase taught us all a lot, he tweeted, positioning himself as a fellow student rather than the professor of the disastrous course. But the future is being built by projects with real-world utility and sustainable tokenomics. My focus now is on deep tech fundamentals. He was performing an evolution in public, shedding his old skin as a hype man, and emerging as a sophisticated, discerning venture capitalist. He started dropping new buzzwords, seeding his feed with the language of the next hype cycle. He talked about zero-knowledge proofs, decentralized AI, and Layer 3 infrastructure. It was all just as meaningless to him as the old buzzwords, but it sounded newer, more serious, more legitimate. Then, after a few days of this intellectual posturing, he planted the first seed. It was a simple, innocuous-looking tweet. Spending my weekend doing a deep dive on decentralized data storage solutions. The potential to disrupt giants like Amazon Web Services is staggering. Some very serious teams building in this space. He didn't name a project. He didn't use a single rocket emoji. He was just sharing his research. The cycle was beginning all over again. Personified dialogue, CryptoChad is hosting his triumphant return Instagram live from his pristine home office. His public persona is in full martyr mode. CryptoChad's public persona. And so they can suspend my account, but they can never suspend the truth. This whole ordeal has been a fire, and it's burned away everything that wasn't real. It's burned away the hype, the tourists, And what's left is a stronger, smarter community, ready for the next chapter. The concept of accountability, a pale, ghostly figure covered in the cobwebs of deleted tweets, materializes behind him. Accountability, in a faint, tired voice. Excuse me. The last chapter ended with thousands of people losing their life savings. Will this next chapter include any, restitution? Or an apology? Or even an acknowledgement of the catastrophic harm caused? Crypto Chad's public persona, without turning around as if shooing away a fly. We don't drive by looking in the rearview mirror. That's how you crash. We look forward to the open road ahead. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. Accountability, but you taught the lesson. You were driving the car that crashed. Crypto Chad's public persona. Life is about learning, growing, and moving on. And I am very excited to announce that I have been learning about some next-generation Oracle solutions that are truly paradigm-shifting. Accountability size, its form dissolving into nothingness. It was never really there to begin with. The amnesia of the internet hype cycle is a powerful, terrifying force. In any sane industry, a figurehead so central to a financial disaster of this magnitude would be a pariah. Their career would be over. Their credibility would be zero. But the world of online influence doesn't operate by the rules of sanity. It operates on the perpetually refreshing timeline, on the endless hunger for the next big thing. An influencer's brand, if managed correctly, can be shockingly resilient. They can hit the reset button. They can change their haircut, change their vocabulary, and start the game over. And tragically, a portion of their audience is often willing to play along. The victims who lost everything are desperate for a way to win it back. And the same person who led them to ruin, now promising he's learned his lesson and has found an even better opportunity, becomes their only beacon of hope. He is selling them a second lottery ticket, and the price of admission is the complete and total erasure of the fact that the last one he sold them was a dud. The carnage was forgotten. The slate was clean. The prophet was back on his pulpit, and a new, shiny, and equally dangerous coin was about to have its moment in the sun. The prophet was reborn, his timeline cleansed by fire, his sins conveniently forgotten. With a new haircut and a new set of buzzwords, Crypto Chad was back on the pulpit, ready to lead a new generation of followers to a new, and just as imaginary, promised land. The great amnesiac engine of internet hype had seemingly reset itself, ready for the cycle to begin anew. It was a depressing, cynical, and, for the scammers, a deeply profitable conclusion. But the cleanup, as thorough and ruthless as it had been, was not perfect. You can delete a website, you can delete a server, you can even delete your own posts. But you cannot delete a screenshot from the phone of a person you have wronged. The internet, for all its flaws, sometimes remembers. While the influencers were busy scrubbing their digital histories, a different kind of community was forming in the shadows. It was a scattered, angry, and motivated group of victims, amateur sleuths, and online vigilantes. They were the digital ghost hunters, and their mission was to ensure that the crimes of Apex Inu were not forgotten. Anonymous watchdog accounts began to materialize on Twitter and YouTube, their profile pictures often just a simple, stark logo of a wolf with a red line through it. Their bios were simple, archiving the evidence of the Apex Inu rug pull. Never forget. These accounts became the unofficial public record, the digital museum of the crime. They were a chaotic, crowdsourced library of all the evidence the scammers had tried so desperately to destroy. There were entire threads of screenshots, meticulously arranged in chronological order, showing Crypto Chad's journey from initial accidental leak to his final gaslighting Instagram story from the beach. There were screen recordings of the now-deleted YouTube videos, the audio of the influencer's confident, fraudulent promises preserved in perpetuity. Using tools like the Wayback Machine, they found archived copies of the original Apex Inu website, its lies now frozen in time like a prehistoric fly in amber. They mapped out the connections between the influencer pod, drawing lines and arrows that proved the organic consensus was a coordinated marketing campaign. They became the lingering digital ghosts of the scam, a permanent stubborn stain that simply would not wash out. Their presence was a constant low-grade haunting, Whenever CryptoChad would tweet about his new serious investment in a decentralized AI protocol, a reply would inevitably appear from one of these accounts. It would be a simple screenshot of his old tweet screaming Apexinu 1000x or bust, with the simple damning caption, "Remember this?" The influencers would block the accounts, but new ones would always pop up. They were playing a game of digital whack-a-mole, and the ghosts just kept coming. Personified dialogue. CryptoChad is on a YouTube livestream in his new, mature venture capitalist persona. He's talking to his remaining followers about his brilliant new investment. CryptoChad. And so the key takeaway is that the market has matured. We've all learned from the speculative frenzy of the past. Now it's about identifying projects with robust long-term fundamentals. This new project, Quantum Leap AI, is a perfect example. It's not about hype. It's about... A comment appears in the live chat from an account named Apex Inu Receipts. It's a direct screenshot of one of CryptoChad's old deleted tweets. A ghostly receipt, the screenshot. Its voice is a distorted recording of CryptoChad's own manic old hype videos. Forget fundamentals. The only thing that matters is community and hype. Apex Inu is a rocket ship, and I am the captain. We are never selling. Diamond hands. CryptoChad. His calm facade cracks for a millisecond. His eye twitches. He forces a smile. It seems we have a troll in the chat trying to spread FUD from old unrelated projects. Mods, can we please, clean that up? We want to maintain a positive and forward-looking environment here. The comment is deleted. The user is banned. CryptoChad clears his throat. As I was saying, the utility of the Quantum Leap AI token is its most compelling feature. A moment later, another comment from a different watchdog account pops up with a different screenshot. The haunting continues. And so, we arrive at the messy, unsatisfying conclusion. The influencer's attempt to create a perfect, sanitized reality was ultimately a failure. They could build a fortress, but they couldn't silence the entire world. The internet's memory, when weaponized by a determined few, is a stubborn and powerful thing. Did these watchdog accounts bring about any real justice? For the most part, no. The developers were anonymous and gone. The influencers kept the money. The wheels of the actual legal system turn far too slowly, if at all, for crimes this new and this digital. But the ghostly receipts served a different purpose. They are a warning, a digital scar. They ensure that for any potential new follower who possesses even a shred of curiosity and knows how to use a search bar, the truth is out there. The influencers may have gotten away with it, but their crime is now a permanent, inseparable part of their digital DNA. A ghost that will follow them into every new venture, every new hype cycle, every new promise. They won the battle for the money, but they lost the war for their own history, and that, in all its infuriating glory, is how a handful of pretty people on the internet, a few anonymous developers, and a token named after a dog managed to conjure a billion-dollar company out of thin air and then make it vanish, taking a lifetime of collective savings with it. The final outcome is that the scammers got rich, the victims got a very expensive lesson in unregulated markets, and the influencers got a 24-hour timeout before rebranding for their next adventure. Now, it should be painfully obvious, but please do not take any of this as financial or ethical advice. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. That said, wasn't this a whole lot more fun than trying to read a 50-page end-user license agreement that basically says the same thing? We certainly think so. The modern world is a chaotic, often nonsensical place, and our mission is simply to point at the dumpster fires and provide some witty, slightly unhinged color commentary. What other modern mess do you want to see us simplify and satirize next? Let us know in the comments. We're always looking for the next great story of technological promises meeting human greed head-on. And that's how that whole mess went down. Until next time, don't trust the algorithm.